thing Hillary Clinton has left to live for right now is to destroy Donald Trump. If Bill Clinton got up and was like, we write all the Bible, we hide the Bibles, we write the Bible, we hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles, we hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles, we hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles, we hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles. Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it. Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it. We fed that woman to the shark. We fed that woman to the shark. We fed her to the shark. Remember, we fed her to the shark. We did it, you did it, we did it. Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it.
They did it, yeah they did it. Donnie T and Hillary, Bill Clinton, they was killing and nibbling them children. Reptilians hiding behind billions. Got the government covering, concealing all the worst fears we feel about these villains. Butt rape, duct tape, ripping off the pizza floodgates. Better get Melinda penicillin. Billy, you can leave a home cause you need a bone. Hit the Steamy phone and get Lolita flown. Brother Jeff will spot you some adrenochrome. Bet your mouth gon' water when you see the dome. She get led to slaughter, who's your man? Slide a hand, Bad Bunny or the Kid Rock. Keep your eye on your car while your Hollywood start spending mad money on that kick.
You think Trump ain't involved? Birds of a feather, but left wing and right wing, they in it together. Vendetta the feds and get fed up, Beretta. Not one shred of evidence left in the shredder.
But Jeff ain't Messiah, ain't no man on a mission. Just handle some business, a man of religion. A cold Luciferian cannibalism. So open the shoot while we handle the victim. And turn her to food, she gon' go to the fishes. The FBI folded, we honor the deal. I took cash to eat shit, but he think I'm inviting him out for a meal. Bill and Hill, it's time for the kill. Just one final thrill for you pushing up daisies.
We hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles.
Now all of a sudden the QAnon's not crazy. Whoa.
We hide the Bibles, we write the Bibles. 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 Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it. Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it. We fed that woman to the shark. We fed that woman to the shark. We fed her to the shark. Remember, we fed her to the shark. We did it, you did it, we did it. Trump did it, we did it, you did it, we did it. The scream heard round the world.
A kingpin lock to help protect your RV from getting stolen when you're not around. But that one's not going in.
You are using a Reese Tow Power Maximum Security Kingpin lock. To open it, I'll be using a short hook to pull out the cylinder. With the cylinder removed, I now have access to the retaining bolt. For this, I'll be using the back end of my short hook and wave rake to hold it in place while I unscrew the lock.
Send in Maverick, because it looks like Iran's got nuclear weapons again.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that.
Evidence. I wonder where he's getting his evidence from.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
I'm from outer space, I got Milky Way for blood, evolution in my veins. I'm gone, I've been far away, I'm illuminated now, I make a move, start a waves. I've been breathing on my fire for a long time. I had a vision from the birds, they won't go find. I'm officially intelligent away. I'm your future, past and present, I'm the spyline. Yeah, I'm a listening of this illusion. I am not really here, I'm an intrusion. I don't swim the seas, I just flow. I don't need gravity, I don't need roll. When I move, it's it up with rumble. I won't ever fall, never stumble. And I don't need to be humble. Break
Yeah, what you need?
A slice or two of pepper jack cheese would have been nice, but you ain't got none.
Pepper jack cheese? Man, what the fuck is you talking about?
You ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer, huh? You just asked me what I need.
I mean, nigga, why you on my porch?
Didn't motherfucker say that? My bad. It's Monday. I ain't smoked yet. I'm trying to feed this hangover. You got all this good ass lunch meat in your house. But why would you buy imitation cheese? You do know that shit don't melt, right?
I thought I heard. Bitch, who let you in my crib?
Stanley.
Man, who the fuck is Stanley?
Stanley. But that's what you shouldn't be worried about. You should be wondering if I got into your safe. I did. I mean, really, who uses their addresses, their combinations?
Bitch, I'm gonna kill you when I get my hands on you.
No, wait till I get my hand on you. That's what you better do. Put your hands on me, because your pistol gone. You can get it back, though. You got cash out?
Bitch, fuck you and that cash out.
You see, that's the third bitch that it came out of your mouth. So guess what, mister? You get nothing.
Laters. Bye. Oh, you fucking prick. I fucking knew it.
Isn't that wild, though, that when Stephen Hawking went to Epstein Island, he was walking normal, and... apparently that's how good it is. And when they asked him about it, he said, worth it. Stephen Hawking was getting so much pussy that he was, like, turning down girls and stuff. I don't think I could date a girl if she just got swerved by the hawk. You know what I mean? If right before your girl goes up to Stephen Hawking, I don't care what anyone says. You're so hot, I want to have sex with you. And he goes, gross. Beat it. And then you gotta like run into him at a party. You're like, how do you two know each other? And Stephen Hawking's like, one man's trash. As long as you like her, that's all that matters.
There are 700 families who lost a member of their family are taken care of. And so I spent the day yesterday and part of the day in talking to our insurance company. Our insurance company, CNA, told me that they would, well, they told our guys, they didn't tell me, and then they told me that, that they were willing to treat this as an accidental death, which means that they would double the policy for all of my my victims upstairs and all of us, and so that added $35 million to that group upstairs. But the sad thing is, so $35 million sounds like so much money, but if you divide it by 700 people, it's only $50,000. It's not enough to. So that's why we need to work on our foundation.
Yeah, and you've set up that foundation. We'll give the information to our viewers. Explain the needs of these young families. Many of your traders were just in their 30s.
We've got the average employee we have is around 33 years old. So they're just married. We have probably a dozen women who are pregnant with babies who just lost their husbands. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots. We must have more than 1,000 children, 1,500 children who've now lost one of their parents, and they've lost the breadwinner that makes all the money. So we are dedicated to raising money for our foundation, which will go to take care of and try to help the victims of this horrible tragedy and try to make their lives a little easier, whether that pays for, health insurance for a long, long time, or gets them some extra money, or makes their lives even this much easier. I mean, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're driving for, and it's called the Cantor Fitzgerald Foundation. And anyone who can make a donation to it is going to help a lot of people who really, really need it.
And just finally, it was just, accident of timing and luck on your part that you weren't in the building, and I know some of the other survivors here. How do you feel it must, tear you in so many different directions?
I don't know why I'm alive. I not only was I didn't get to the building early enough so that I wasn't in it, but then I stood outside at the door helping people out and telling them to come on, get out, and asking what floor they were on, trying to find the higher and higher floors so that I could hopefully find someone coming down from 101, so that meant our guys and our women had survived. But I'm standing under the building when the number 2 collapses, and I'm just lucky to be alive, and I don't know why I am, but you know what, I'm just thankful, and it must be because I've got the responsibility to try to do my best for this group of 700 families, and I'm just one of them. I lost my brother, my sister's here. We're just part of the family, and that's my responsibility, and I'm going to do my best. And my fantastic employees at Cantor and eSpeed and TradeSpark, they're doing their best to support these guys, and that's what's driving them. And I think they're here.
Oh my gosh.
And there's as well.
Well, it's going to be a food fight going after $175 billion, isn't it? So
I got a feeling the American people won't see it.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's.
Oh shit! Are you all good, bro? I've done me back. I've done me fucking back! No fucking way. He's done it. He's fucking done it! I'm in so much pain! Yeah! He's hit the fucking jackpot, boys! You fucking dirty! You fucking dirty! You fucking deserve it, mate! I'm so happy for you! Yeah! What the fuck is this? You'll be hearing from my lawyer, cunt! Yeah!
Go. See how long that lasts, eh?
Oh my God, what the fuck?
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
Hell yeah. Fucking wired this thing in backwards. You need to be drunk as fuck to drive it.
There's a couple things you're gonna need to know when you're on a farm. A couple safety tips, like if you come to this fence over here.
This one.
Ah, fuck! It's electric.
You're not supposed to touch it.
Don't touch it because
Well,
it's electrified.
Why didn't you say that?
I was getting into it and you grabbed the fence. I pointed at the fence.
The fence can't be that bad.
It's
It
electrocuted.
keeps the cows
Oh,
in. It's electric. He's just from New Zealand. He's a pussy.
No, it keeps the cows in.
You think I'm not tougher than a cow?
Yes.
Cowabunga, baby. Fuck! What the fuck is that? Pikachu's in that fence, bro. Fucking.
That's for bulls, actually. Bull fence, more specifically.
Nah, I think I got a bad current. Let me try again.
Don't try again.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Stop, you gotta go.
Woo! Bro, it's a fucking rush. Try it again, Jimmy. Try it again.
Don't
Stop fucking
rush.
It's a fucking rush, eh?
I don't know.
No, yep.
I'm not kidding.
Woo! This guy's fucking retarded.
You just got to organize the Tupperware. We got our squares, our circles, our rectangles, and all of our lids in one place, right? Doesn't Son of a bitch!
Mira qué chulada, mira. A
ver.
Mira, fuerte.
Israel has a right to defend itself. That was the editorial line that was drilled into us, into all of our coverage. It was really an integral part of the editorial stance. To a guest talking about, Israeli airstrikes killing Palestinians in Gaza, that would be the response from our presenters.
Denying access to food is collective punishment, and that we should all be clear in saying that.
Israel will argue, obviously, that it has a right to defend itself. People were terrified of using the word genocide in coverage. They still are. You will very rarely see it in any BBC coverage. And if an interviewee says the word genocide,
this is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
That word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only.
the presenter will almost always panic.
The Labour Party, of all political parties, which has always had a strong peace contingent within it, is now actually supporting genocide.
Okay, if we can maybe just avoid that language, if that's okay.
In Iceland, you don't have to lock your bike, but I recommend it, otherwise it will be stolen. Being black in Iceland is like being Chinese in Africa. Nobody cares, except racists. This is what tourism in Iceland is all about. You come here and sit down and then you think, why didn't I go to Spain? If being sexy was a crime, I would be in jail for tax fraud. Sometimes when I'm walking to work, I stop here and look at the view and realize I'm going in the wrong direction. And also it's Sunday. There's iced tea, but there's no ice hot chocolate because that's just chocolate. People think rising sea level is because of global warming, but it's not. It's this motherfucker. He's been doing this all day. My girlfriend says she is depressed because of me. It is not true. People all around the world have depression and they don't even know me. In Iceland, we say, if you kick a man in the balls, he will be in pain for a minute. But if you kiss him on the ballsack, he's gay. They say there are no trees in Iceland, but I'm actually in Italy right now, but we still have them, just smaller and fewer. In Iceland, it is acceptable to drink and drive, as long as it is not on the same day. In 2005, we built a mall here in Iceland, but as you can see, we do not have enough people for a mall. We should have just built a store. In America, they say that if you're not ready to do the time, don't commit the crime. But in Iceland, we just say, don't do the crime. Because nothing rhymes with glæpur. They say that the average erect gorilla penis is approximately 4 centimeters. And I thought maybe we should give starving children food before we measure gorilla dicks. There's a saying in Iceland, if there's fog, you're not able to see as far.
Day 1 of not pissing my wife off. Day 2 of not pissing my wife off. Day 1 of not pissing my wife off. Day 1 of not pissing my wife off. Day 1 of not pissing my wife off.
Is that a golden spoon? You can't use that one, bud. That one's for you. Those are for champions, so. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. No way. No way.
How much postage does it take to send a letter to Canada?
Who's it going to?
Canada. It says, Dear Canada, you.
Welcome to the Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
I can only count to 4. I can only count to 4. I can only count to 4. I can only count to...
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up on Odyssey, Rumble, Substack, and the Indie News Network on Twitter. Let's jump right into this first clip from Dave DeCamp of antiwarnews.com.
Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, and welcome to Anti-War News. It's about 9:40 on Tuesday night here in Virginia. President Trump is still giving his State of the Union address. I watched the first chunk of it, so no foreign policy stuff that I saw yet. My boss, Eric, is watching it, and he is going to message me if Trump says anything, big when it comes to Iran, makes any threats. I doubt that he's going to announce any war plans, but maybe he's going to try to make a case for the war, which he and the administration haven't done. But we're actually going to get into what the case he seems to be making in a story here tonight. But the first story at the top of antiwar.com, U.S. F-22s arrive in Israel as part of Iran buildup. So 12 U.S. F-22 Raptor fighter jets that departed the U.K. on Tuesday have arrived at an Israeli Air Force base in southern Israel. Ynet has reported as the U.S. continues its massive military buildup in the Middle East to prepare for a potential attack on Iran. The F-22s arrived in the U.K. last week, part of the more than 150 U.S. military aircraft that have shifted to Europe and the Middle East since February 17th. So according to a report from the Wall Street Journal, 150 U.S. military aircraft left the United States and went to either Europe or the Middle East, and many of the ones that go to Europe end up going to the Mideast just in a week. So this goes to show this steady stream of U.S. deployments to the region to prepare for this, what looks like a coming war. Really, it's at a high level here. And as far as I remember, I don't remember U.S. fighter jets actually deploying to a base in Israel during the last war. So this seems to be an escalation of the U.S. presence actually in Israel. We know that they have the THAAD batteries that are operated by a few hundred U.S. troops. But now we have U.S. fighter jets there. And I know the F-22, I don't know if they would try to use the F-22 to intercept any missiles or anything, or if they would just be used for airstrikes. I know that the first thing that an F-22 fighter jet shot down was that big Chinese balloon that went over the U.S. back in 2023 and then was shot down, I think, off the coast of South Carolina. But that was the F-22's first kill in the air, was a balloon. And I don't know if they've intercepted anything after that. But anyway, the USS Gerald Ford is still heading east in the Mediterranean Sea and has passed Crete. And once it arrives near Israel's coast, it will be the second U.S. carrier in the region. And U.S. officials previously told the New York Times that the Gerald Ford and its escorts, the U.S. destroyers that are escorting it, are likely to initially be deployed near the coast of Israel to defend Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities and towns. So during the 12-day war, another big munition that the U.S. used besides the THAAD interceptors were the SM-3 and SM-6 missiles, which can be fired by U.S. Navy destroyers to intercept ballistic missiles. So they're saying that they're going to put this carrier right off the coast of Israel to defend Israel. That's why the U.S. sailors on there are being overstretched with this extended deployment to defend Israel. All right, so the next one here, Turkey is preparing for an influx of refugees from Iran if the U.S. attacks. So Turkey is preparing for the possibility of an influx of refugees from Iran, Bloomberg has reported, as the U.S. is preparing to launch a potential attack on the Islamic Republic, which could spark a full-blown regional war. And it appears that Turkey is getting prepared for that possibility. Bloomberg sources said that Turkish officials have updated their contingency plans to prepare for large numbers of displaced people in the event of a major conflict, and options range from setting up camps near the border to entering Iranian territory to prevent refugees from crossing into Turkey. So part of the planning is potentially actually going into Iran. The report said that the possibility of Turkey sending forces into Iran to stop refugees would only be considered if there was a power vacuum in Tehran. The Bloomberg report also said that NATO's air surveillance forces have shifted their focus from keeping an eye on Russia to Iran. NATO's air surveillance forces in Turkey. You see this picture here. This is a NATO radar plane. And so they use these planes to keep an eye on both Russia and Iran. But essentially, this report is saying is that Now it's mostly focused on Iran as the U.S. is conducting this huge military buildup. So, this is important, I think, because it goes to show that these regional countries are expecting the possibility of this turning into something major, where you would see a huge refugee crisis. All right, so the next one here, Israel threatens Lebanon if Hezbollah is involved in Iran war. So we saw kind of a similar version of this story earlier this week, but now there's reports that Israel has informed the Lebanese government that Lebanon's civilian infrastructure will be hit hard if Hezbollah in any way takes part in the apparently upcoming U.S.-Iran war. Lebanese officials have urged Hezbollah not to do so, saying that the war does not concern them. The twin hopes are that Hezbollah will stay out of the war and that Israel won't just attack Lebanon anyway. And this is the thing, who knows what Hezbollah is going to do, but what has happened over the past almost year and a half now, since November 2024, there was a ceasefire deal put in place. Israel has attacked Lebanon over 1,000 times since then, killed hundreds of people. And how many times has Hezbollah attacked Israel? 0 times. So, there obviously Israel doesn't need, they could find a pretext, say this war happens, and they say, all right, well, all this is happening. Let's start, doing some other things in the region. They could find their pretext. At the same time, they could be facing some serious missile attacks from Iran, which could make them not really be able to expand things. All right, so the next one here, Western forces in Erbil relocate ahead of possible U.S. strikes on Iran. So this article is from Middle East Eye. So a few days ago, amid heightened U.S.-Iran tensions, a military helicopter landed at the Erbil airport in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Although Western troops are rarely seen on the city's streets, Erbil Air Base is heavily staffed with soldiers, and military helicopters fly overhead every day. Now, this airport could potentially become a target for Iran if the situation escalates. Since 2018, the Kurdistan region, including Erbil's airport, has come under attack by drone, rockets, and ballistic missiles from Iran and its proxies. In July last year, a suicide drone was shot down above the airport amidst attacks on oil fields in the region. And so there's foreign forces here. There's U.S. troops there. And in recent weeks, sources told Middle East Eye that several countries belonging to the U.S.-led coalition in Iraq have withdrawn or repositioned troops from the Erbil Air Base, fearing possible Iranian retaliatory strikes. So these are several U.S. allied countries who have troops, including Norway, Sweden, Italy, and France. So their soldiers have left, while U.S. and Hungarian troops have largely remained. But it's another sign that other countries are preparing for this, that they believe that this is going to happen. All right, so the next one here, Iran's foreign minister says that Iran will never develop a nuclear bomb. So I saw this and, I didn't really think it was much of a story because this is something the Iranians say all the time, that they don't want nuclear weapons. But I saw, so Brett Baier, Fox News host Brett Baier, he attended some kind of lunch Trump had with news anchors. And this is what he said Trump told him about Iran. Trump claimed that Iran desperately wants a deal, but these are Trump's words, just can't say the sacred phrase, we won't build nuclear weapons. And now, again, this is just Iran's official government position, is that they don't seek nuclear weapons. And this is what he's saying. I mean, again, they're trying to make the case. They're not really actually trying to make a case for war. They're not even trying, based on these things that they're saying. So, but this is Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian foreign minister. He reaffirmed on Tuesday, Iran's position is that they don't seek nuclear weapons. And he also said that they would, he maintained that they would continue their enrichment, even though after the U.S. attacks, there's no sign that Iran is able to enrich uranium at the moment, but essentially saying they won't give up the possibility of enrichment. He's maintaining that. But this is what he said, quote, our fundamental convictions are crystal clear. Iran will under no circumstances ever develop a nuclear weapon. Neither will we Iranians ever forgo our right to harness the dividends of peaceful nuclear technology for our people. We have a historic opportunity to strike an unprecedented agreement that addresses mutual concerns and achieves mutual interests. A deal is within reach, but only if diplomacy is given priority, end quote. So again, it's just, I saw Caroline Leavitt again, on today. She was asked, didn't Trump obliterate the nuclear facilities? And she said, of course, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated the nuclear program, but Iran may one day again try to make a nuclear weapon. So, I mean, they're not even like acting like it's some sort of imminent thing. Although at the same time, you had Steve Witkoff over the weekend claiming that within a week they could have enough material to make a bomb or something. So again, this is just absurd. And this is something that Witkoff also said in that Fox News interview. He says, we can't get them to the point to profess that they don't want a nuclear weapon. It's like, what is he talking about? I mean, they profess that all the time. So anyway, that's why I figured this was worth writing here. It's just, and so what's interesting, and we'll see what happens if he says this in the State of the Union, Bret Baier was saying this in the context of the State of the Union. Like Trump was previewing it for the news anchors, saying that this is, what I'm going to say about Iran, that I want a deal, but they won't say this. They won't say they don't want nuclear weapons. So if he actually says that at the State of the Union, hours after the Iranian foreign minister said that, I mean, it just goes to show what a lazy effort this is to try to convince the American people that they should launch a war. It's just ridiculous. The next one here, top Democrats try to stop a vote on Trump's Iran war. So this article is by Ada Chavez, a reporter from her Substack, Capital and Empire. This is a very important story here. House Foreign Affairs Committee Democrats have been working behind the scenes to try to prevent a vote on Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey's Iran War Powers Resolution, a measure that would require every member of Congress to go on the record about a potential U.S. war with Iran. A top Democratic staffer on the committee, multiple sources with direct knowledge tell me, deliberately inflated projections of opposition to the bipartisan measure, warning of 20 to 40 Democratic defections as part of a broader effort to dampen momentum and prevent the Iran War Powers vote from advancing. Khanna and Massey had initially planned to force a vote on the resolution this week, but Democratic leadership is now saying that they expect the vote to be delayed until next week or even later. The postponement comes as the Trump administration accelerates preparations for unauthorized military action, overseeing the largest U.S. military buildup in the region in years. So I don't know if I mentioned this on the show, but late last week, I think maybe on Friday, Axios had a story that said, the Congress may give Trump approval of a war with Iran, trying to make the argument that if they vote on this war powers resolution and it fails, that would be the same as like giving him some sort of authorization, which just isn't true. Nowhere in history has a executive used a failed war powers resolution as some kind of authorization. But essentially what that story was is an effort to stop the vote because the Democratic leadership doesn't want it. And the Trump administration also doesn't want it. They always work very hard against these war powers resolutions. They act like they're no big deal, but judging by their behavior, they do care about them. For the Democrats, though, so this is something for Republican, Trump supporters to understand. One reason why the Democratic leadership doesn't want this vote, well, some of them, like Chuck Schumer, probably want war with Iran. But others probably see this as a potential way that if this war is launched, it's going to hurt Trump more. It's going to, his approval rating is going to go down even further. The Republicans are going to do even worse in the elections than they're expected to. So they want war with Iran, and they also want Trump to take a hit. And they don't care, I guess, if Americans get killed or if innocent Iranians get killed in the process. But obviously, this is an important vote, and they're probably afraid to go on record here. As Khanna says, Ro Khanna says, if this does turn into a full-blown war here and they have this vote beforehand, it'll be the one that people go back to and say, okay, where was Congress on this? Where did these people stand on this before this disaster ensued? So I think it would be a very important vote, but they don't want it. So call your representative, tell them that you support this bill and that it should be brought to the floor for a vote.
Next, we have this clip with an interview with Patrick Henningsen.
Everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and I am joined by Patrick Henningsen of the 21st Century Wire. The links are in the description below. I highly recommend people go and check that out, of course. Patrick, you just came back from Iran. You came all the way to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for Anarchapulco 2026, which is quite the journey. Now, right now, we have this strange shift between, as we saw under the Bush years, people on the left were generally anti-war. Obama came in, then people on the left became pro-war, and the right became anti-war. Now we have this shift again where under Trump, suddenly, if he does it, it's okay to go to war with Iran. We need regime change. A country that hasn't attacked anyone in 200 years, except for in retaliation in recent days with Israel and the United States with their preemptive strikes. So I wanted to hear your thoughts, having just been there and having studied this for a while. You have made no secret about it. You have been on the right through in the past, and of course, you have voted for Trump in the past, and you are one of the most vocal critics, and now everyone's calling you a leftist. And it's very interesting because it's that left-right paradigm it's just in a circle always. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with Iran and what brought you to the point you are at now where you're rejecting this narrative that Iran is a boogeyman that's going to kill us, much like Iraq?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and it's great to be with you. Yeah, I literally wasn't planning to go to Iran, but the opportunity came up at the last minute, and it created a lot of problems because I had already booked my travel here. So it was kind of really last minute, so I had to basically reroute everything. I didn't know until the last minute because I didn't have my visa until and that's how it goes with that country, especially, is everything's at the last minute. So I was all prepared, and the U.S. might even attack Iran 2 weeks ago. They already had naval assets positioned around the country, so that was, there could be a war at any moment, basically. So I was prepared to basically cancel all of that. So you have to go through all the motions to the embassy. You got to get my press accreditation. I have to put my press credentials through. It needs to be approved by their Ministry of Information. And like any country you go to, if you go to China or something, it's the same. So anyway, they got the green light. And so I was like, okay, and I got to get here by whenever it was. I don't think it was the 16th or 15th or 16th. So it was very tight. It was a difficult journey. There's a lot of obstacles in the way. The U.S. State Department sent out a communique just before I left saying, don't go. And if you're there, leave now. And if you are there, you'll shelter in place because there's going to be mayhem. Kind of threatening, I would say. And this is the most, vociferous State Department warning I've ever seen. And that's important because that shows you that the government in Washington is behaving differently than in the past. Because the State Department never issued warnings like that. There's always a process where there'll be some kind of a build-up trying to get consensus for humanitarian intervention. I mean, there's a whole process that one would go through, even some fake intelligence, do the UN Security Council thing, Colin Powell with the anthrax, all of that. So none of this has happened. So this is totally unprecedented. And and so I said, when I saw that warning from the State Department, I said, actually, I need to go now. I need to go now because the war could break out. It might be my last opportunity. I approach all of these situations as once in a lifetime. Even if there's a chance to go back, you never know if you can and if you ever will. Like, I've never been back to Syria, although I was there during the war. But I took the opportunity when it arose. Did the same here. I wanted to verify. I already had my suspicions, of course, that the whole peaceful protesters being massacred was a complete psyop. Why? Because I have seen and studied color revolutions for about 15 years, and I've seen pretty much everything from Yugoslavia to the Arab Spring to the Maidan in Ukraine to Thailand to thwarted elections in various countries, including European and NATO countries. So I was like, okay, but I still need to verify it because it's one thing to have that opinion as a talking head or a pundit in the West. It's another thing to be able to back it up with some sort of more close-up observations. And so I had an opportunity to do that. Of course, the Iranians know my positions because my views are public. So they know that I'm pro-sovereignty. They know I'm pro-international law. and they know I'm pro-Constitution in the U.S. So I actually am one of these dinosaurs that believes in the U.S. Constitution, that it's a very robust, dynamic, flexible document, that it's the glue that holds the republic together. And if we just, as the founders laid out, follow these system of checks and balances, we will have a very strong and long life for our republic. I'm very old-fashioned in that sense. I know that's very not like in vogue these days, especially with MAGA. And all that.
Despite all the former Ron Paul supporters that are now supporting Trump and have forgotten what the Constitution is, and that was their main ideology when it was Ron Paul running. But now with Donald Trump, they've thrown it all to the side. It's quite sad to see.
They've been corrupted a little bit. Yeah, not too many Ron Paul supporters, but enough to be a little bit uncomfortable. But anyway, so I arrived there, got through customs, and immediately they took us to the National Day, which is happening. So it started. They get up early for their protests, by the way. They're on site at 7 a.m. And so they got to pray and they got to do all this stuff. So
you mean they're not like Americans? They're not nursing a hangover and showing up at 5 p.m.
No. They're up and they're out in droves. There was 2.5 million people on the streets of Tehran. 2.5 million. Now they've been telling us for the last month and 2 months that the people, the regime's ready to collapse. It's very unpopular. The mullahs are ruling with an iron fist. Okay, first of all, and this is another good insight that I got, and I think everybody should have this insight, or at least understanding of it, which is that in a country like Iran, in Asia, and in the Arab world to a large degree, but Iran's very unique. It's a republic. There's not many of those in the Middle East. No, you've got Gulf monarchies, you've got an apartheid colonial settler state, you've got some, concentration camps, and then you've got Syria, which is run by Al-Qaeda, backed by the U.S. and Britain, of course.
Yeah, the HTS, formerly al-Nusra Front, al-Jilani, now al-Shura, who has actual photos of him carrying beheaded heads and has been on the terrorist watch list for decades now. Now he's meeting and trying on cologne in the Oval Office.
That's right. I call Trump Abu Donald. Abu Donald, because Abu Donald saved Jilani more than once, saved him in Idlib and a few times. So anyway, we don't want to digress. But the point is that a country like Iran has a supreme leader, plays the sort of symbolic religious role that, like, say, the Russian patriarch Kirill would do in the Eastern Orthodox Church, or, for instance, like the Pope might have done during the Holy Roman Empire, but with a full democratic parliamentarian Republican government system. So we have checks and balances in America where we have executive branch, we have Congress, a bicameral chamber, Senate and Congress, and we have a judiciary, and those are the three main branches of government. There's other unofficial branches of government, but those are the main ones. And that's an effective system of checks and balances. The Iranian system is like that with about 3 or 4 other chambers, and it's very complex. So to get consensus in Iran for anything, legislation, policy, it's a very complex process of getting, but they rule with the consent of the people, 110%. The government fears the people in Iran, not the other way around.
Well, I wanted to actually throw something in there that, of course, people talk about how great the Shah was despite the Savak secret police and all the things that were involved in that. Was he critical of Israel publicly? Yes. Is his son critical of Israel publicly? Absolutely not. But, of course, they found they found Israeli bullets in the bodies of children at the protests. Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, openly boasted on X that Mossad was within the crowd manipulating it. I cannot imagine a bunch of Iranians burning down a bunch of mosques. The cultural minister of Israel had openly said that they were there manipulating the protests. We have Israeli media saying that. Eventually, you got to get to a point where you say these protests aren't legit, and how many people actually died. And that is something that you're not allowed to say. It's like questioning any major event where if people died, they don't want you asking those questions, and you could get sued, you could get, I guess, canceled to some degree, asking, did 30,000 or 40,000 people die in these protests in a few weeks, and who was really behind that?
Yeah, and all the claims of the massacres and the numbers just went up by the hour. It's just ridiculous. And after 24, it started at 5,000, then a few hours later it was 10, then it was 20, then it was 30, then they sort of settled on 30 for a while, then it was 50. Some people started floating 70,000, and then they said it was a genocide the following day. I mean, you can kind of see where this is going. It's ridiculous. The most laughable one was they claimed that there was 40,000 people killed in this one town or city outside of Tehran that only has a population of 26,000. So that was, to me, one of the funny ones. It's completely fake. The Iranian government released a list of all the victims' names, 3,170, of which, and this was, I learned this because we were getting briefed by the police department there, and they showed us all of the important pieces of evidence that they had on file.
Well, wasn't over 400 of those deaths police?
So they regard, out of that 3,170, they regard approximately 2,400 as martyrs. So martyrs would be Basij. This is the local people's mobilization units that are attached to neighborhoods. They're of the people. It's like a standing militia, like we used to have in America. And then you have the police. Then you have first responders that were killed, that were targeted, firemen, EMS workers, nurses, and then civilians, innocent bystanders, and maybe Iranians, citizens that were caught for whatever reason. They might have been out for a protest and maybe not violent. There were provocateurs that were using the crowd as human shields to fire on the police to get a reaction. And this is, I saw this in Syria, in Homs, and in Kiev and Maidan. This is a standard practice for agitation and to try to get those images for CNN, for the regime, and that manufactures consent in the West for regime change operations. And they did have a military operation plan to hit Iran. If it was unstable enough, the Iranians shut down the internet, intercepted a lot of Starlink terminals that were smuggled into the country, and that the things died down very quickly after that, and that tells you something as well. But back to the by the way, all these claims from casualties and massacres of protesters are all from Iranian human rights organizations, but based in New York, based in Washington, D.C., and based in Toronto, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. More than one is a known CIA front. One, Iran International News, is a known Israeli propaganda clearinghouse, Iran International News. And Google boosts Iran International News at the top of any searches on Iran. How do you get that kind of placement on Google? So that's the power of big tech working with government and the intelligence services, and to warp and distort the information space. But on the Shah issue, interesting, and you see the remnants of this. The Savak torture chambers and whatnot are there as a museum. It's very much in the forefront of people's minds. The Iran-Iraq War, which was when the U.S. gave chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein. Many people died on both sides, but Iran lost the equivalent number of people during that war that the Americans lost during the Second World War. So these are the things that shaped the Islamic Revolution. You see, the things that we did to those countries, the overthrow of Mossadegh. So they have this in their living memory. And the CIA used to train Savak, and then America left in 1975. And guess who they handed over the training of Savak to? The Israelis. So while the Shah might have said a few critical things about Israel, they were well embedded. And maybe that's why he became critical later.
Now we have this clip from the Indie News Network.
Who are these people?
I'm gonna run this video. I want to watch it. I'm gonna stop it a couple of times, and I want to comment on it as we're watching it. And I think this guy's crazy. This was published 3 weeks ago, and I shared this with people. I was gonna actually do this on Nobody Wants to Work Anymore with Himbo. I probably still will, and we'll do a counter to it. But I wanted to share this and see if anyone else had seen this. So let's run this.
I've seen the future, and it is right here on this Mac Mini. Over the last 48 hours, I've been playing with an AI tool that has completely changed my life. It's called ClaudeBot, and it is a 24/7 AI agent employee that works for you all day and night. It can control a computer, it has infinite memory, and it can do anything a human being can do. It's literally like having your own employee. I think
All right. Before I continue, ClaudeBot ended up getting sued by Anthropic, which owns Claude AI, you know, the Claude Code, because it sounded too similar. He then changed it to Moltbot, which then he sold, he did some kind of crypto scam, and they ended up, and he ended up changing the name again to OpenClaw. And within 3 days, OpenAI offered him a ton of money, and he sold the damn thing to OpenAI. Not this guy, but the person that developed ClaudeBot or OpenClaw. So check this out.
I'm prepared to say, and this is not hyperbolic, this is the best technology I've ever used in my life, and by far the best application of AI I've ever seen. This is what they wanted Claude Cowork to be. In this video, I'll show you how it works, how to set it up for yourself, and show you 6 things I've been doing over the last 48 hours of ClaudeBot that have changed my life. I'll also, towards the end of the video, go over why I'm actually kind of scared of what's going to happen when the entire world starts using this tech. If you stick with me until the end of this video, you'll have a full-time 24/7 AI employee working for you. Let's get into it. So what you see on my screen right here is ClaudeBot. This is a local gateway running on my Mac Mini that I have right here on my desk that has this AI agent working for me 24/7. Best part about this is it's an open source project, so it's not owned by any big company that can spy on you or do anything. It was all created by Peter Steinberger, who's a successful entrepreneur who's now dedicated to this project.
Except he already sold out to OpenAI.
He is a great man for putting this out and giving this to the world, because this has absolutely changed my life and changed the life of a lot of people I've talked to. So shout out Peter Steinberg. Make sure to follow him on X. So
there's also, by the way, a lot of people that have come out with videos saying, don't do this. And they give you a lot of reasons why. And I watched one of those recently too, and I thought it was interesting.
This is running on my Mac Mini and can control the entire computer. It can pop open browsers, it can do work in Google Docs, it can look at your Apple Notes, it can write Notion documents, anything you can do on your computer. It can look at your email, it can send emails, it can respond to emails, literally anything you can do on your computer, this ClaudeBot can do. The 3 parts about this I think are absolutely mind-blowing is, 1, what I just talked about, the fact that it can control everything on your computer. There are absolutely no guardrails on this whatsoever. It's completely unhinged. But number 2, it has infinite memory. So it has a really complex memory system where everything I say, everything I do is constantly saved to memory. After every chat session with it, they take what we talk about and all the important tidbits about me and save it to our memories. So for instance, in one of our first conversations, I mentioned I have a newsletter. 2 days later, it proactively wrote me a few drafts for my newsletter because I mentioned I send out newsletters on a specific day. It proactively did that work for me. That is hours saved a week, just like that, because of ClaudeBot. The third part that blows my mind and that makes this amazing is the fact that this is completely interfaced through messaging services. I named my ClaudeBot Henry and I gave it a little owl logo. It just makes it a lot more fun to interact with when it has a name. So when I say Henry for the rest of this video, know I'm talking about my ClaudeBot. I completely engage with Henry through Telegram, but you can also do iMessage. You can also do WhatsApp. There's like 20 different messaging apps you can use. If you want to do Discord, you can do Discord. And what makes this so great is now from anywhere in the world, I can just open up my messaging app and say, Henry, please do this on my computer. Please write this document. Please respond to this email. Please go on Amazon and buy this for me. Literally anything I can do on a computer.
And you don't have to say please, because you don't have to be polite, because it's a fucking bot.
I can text Henry from anywhere in the world, and Henry will go and do that for me. Just as a quick example, I said, Henry, I want to track all your tasks that you work on in a Kanban board, like a project management board. And I texted him that while I was at Chick-fil-A, and he texted me back a few options. I go, okay, this looks great. Build the Kanban board. I come back to my computer. Henry vibe coded an entire Kanban board with Claude Code for me. I'm not even using Claude Code anymore. Henry does all the Claude coding for me. Henry can control Claude Code, Codex, any vibe coding platform you can think of. Henry just pops open, builds it. Now I have an agent doing my coding for me. I don't even do the coding myself. And just if you're curious what that project management platform looks like that Henry built, here it is. I think this looks amazing. It looks like linear. All the tasks Henry complete goes over here in activity, and I can just create a backlog for Henry, and I just assign it to him, and he just starts working on it, and I can track his tasks across the board. He just built this by himself. I mean, I can't stress this enough. This is literally like a human employee. A couple more examples.
It's creeping me out that he says that he calls it he. He continually personalizes, and we've talked about this, and Ryan at The Last American Vagabond has talked about this, that people are personalizing and humanizing the AI bots, which is dangerous.
Get you excited before I show you how to set it up. This morning, he just started proactively sending me a morning brief. So check this out. Based on our conversations over the last couple of days, he's like, okay, I'm going to send you a morning brief just with things that you might care about. So he found other AI channels on YouTube and showed me what videos they've been posting lately, showed me the weather where I'm at in Mountain View, showed me trending news on AI because all we do is talk about AI, and then even gave me a breakdown of all the overnight work Henry did for me. So it wrote me a YouTube script for this video. I'm using the script Henry wrote for me in this video, gave me another script for Ralph Wiggum, and wrote another newsletter draft for me on the changing AI landscape. And then he gave me, because he knows I'm a content creator, a few ideas of things I can do for today based on what's happening in the world of AI. Have a great Saturday. I love the little human touches. This is all proactive.
Because you're a fucking dork.
This is direct value in my life. Just like that. And I didn't need to think of this. I didn't need to set all this up. Henry just learns about me and starts doing work for me. This, I really believe, is going to change so many lives.
Yes. This reminds me of the NFL Super Bowl commercial of finding your lost dog using Amazon and Ring. It's very similar, I think.
Now truly see the path to building a one-person billion-dollar business. I think it's possible. I think I can do it. And I think it's possible because of Claudebot. You need to be setting this up. You need to be working with it. So how do you set it up? Let's get into that right now. So the first question I get all the time over the last 2 days has always been, do I really need a Mac Mini? Do I need to buy a Mac Mini and run out and get it? The answer to that is no. You do not need a Mac Mini. You can.
However, there has been a massive run, by the way, at Apple stores on Mac Minis specifically to do this. There are some saying that you should set this up on its own machine, completely separate from your accounts and from anything that you regularly operate, giving it, it's like giving an employee their own computer, and don't give it any accounts and share any of your accounts with it.
Can do this significantly cheaper than a $600 Mac Mini. I personally bought a Mac Mini for this for a few different reasons. One, I really like Mac OS. I love the operating system. I think it's very easy for me to just go in, see what Henry's working on, and send out any work I need or help out Henry with anything he's doing. I just love the Mac operating system. Two, all my other devices are Apple devices, so I can very quickly go on my iPad, go on my MacBook Pro, go on my iPhone, take any files from my devices and airdrop it to Henry. For instance, the thumbnail to this video, I took one of my template thumbnails that was on my phone, I airdropped it to Henry, and I texted him on Telegram, hey, take this and edit it and make it good for Claudebot. Also, side note, Henry has access to any AI service you can think of, so it used Nano Banana Pro to edit the thumbnail, the one you see here. And last...
Now, that's another thing. Giving Henry access to the unfettered access to all of these AI services can get very expensive very quickly. And that's what the other video I watched talked about, which was that they were using credits. Like something was like, wake me up or tell me if this thing happens. And the thing kept pinging and using $18 to be able to even tell them if something was ready or not. And it cost way more that way than it should have.
The third reason I bought a Mac Mini is it's just fun. It's just fun having a device on your desk that you look at and you see an AI agent working on 24/7. Sometimes you do not need a reason to do things. Sometimes...
Okay, you are a fucking dork.
A good reason to do things is you just want to have a little fun. And for me, seeing a Mac Mini on my desk, knowing there's an AI agent working on it 24/7, that is fun to me and that is worth it. And I know for a fact this AI is going to have an ROI significantly higher than $600. In fact, I'm very confident this AI will have a ROI well over $1 million. So I am fine buying a Mac Mini just to make it a tad more convenient. And you...
Funny. You know, I don't know. It's just amazing how many people ran out and bought Mac Minis specifically because allegedly they saw this video or a video like it.
You really don't need an expensive Mac Mini for this. You can literally buy the cheapest one. That's the one I bought. I just went with the base $600 version. It doesn't require a ton of storage or memory. The only reason you'd want more storage and memory, though, is a few reasons. If one, you plan on having Henry do very storage or memory intensive things. So for instance, if I figure out a way to have Henry start doing video editing for me, I'm going to be dropping a ton of videos onto this Mac Mini. And so I might end up having to expand to a larger one. I'll probably just buy an external SSD. But also another thing is Henry is a really good vibe coder. And if I'm going to have Henry vibe code 5 or 6 apps at the same time, I'm probably going to want more memory than this. So this is just me testing it out, seeing if I can maximize this hardware. But if I need more hardware, I might buy a more expensive Mac. But that's only if you're doing a Mac Mini. There are way cheaper and easier
I agree.
ways
He is
to
an
get
intense
Claude
sales
set up,
nerd.
like right now. You don't need to run out
Takes
to
one
a
to
Mac
know
store.
one.
All you need to
I am
run
an intense
Claudebot
sales
is
nerd.
a VPS, so your own virtual private server. There are a lot of really cheap ways to do that. And one of them is AWS. You can go on AWS and
Yes,
spin
there
up
is a
like
music
free
app
plan
like
right now
Audacity.
and run it yourself. The reason why I would recommend not doing Claudebot on your main computer is it is an AI with zero guardrails that can do anything on your computer at all. So that's why it's a good reason to put it in its own environment. If you install this right now on your main computer and you give it a prompt and you don't really know what you're doing, it could start doing things with your personal files that you don't want. Say you tell it to send an email and it gets confused and it goes to your personal email service and sends off some emails from your own name you don't want. Or say it gets confused and opens up your iMessage and starts sending messages through your text to your friends, right? You don't want to do that. And I'm not saying this is like a really stupid AI. It's super smart. But as you get up and running, as you learn how it works, you really want it in its own environment. So if you are hesitant or you don't want to spend a ton of money, this is honestly probably the smart way to do it, to just sign up for a VPS, get your own virtual private server, install Claudebot on it, and have it in its own separate instance. And then from there, a lot of things I did was I gave it its own email address. So I signed up on Gmail for its own email account. I gave it its own accounts for everything, so it doesn't use my own personal accounts. Because there are zero guardrails on this. So you want to be safe as well. One thing we didn't cover is using a super expensive computer instead of a Mac Mini or a VPS. There's actually use cases behind that as well. So if you really wanted to go nuts, and this might honestly be something I do, you could buy a really good computer like a Mac Studio and then max out its memory, like go 512 and spend like 10K on this. And the reason why you might want to do this is you can then run local models on this computer. So Claudebot is completely free, completely open source, but it needs to be powered by an AI service. You can use any AI service you want. I'm going to go in detail on that in a second once we go to the actual setup past this hardware. But if you really wanted to, you could run your own local model on your computer that powers Claudebot. So there are actually realistic use cases why you might want a super powerful computer to use this. If you want the privacy of having all your data local on your computer, and if you want unlimited, basically free usage, if you don't count like power and energy of Claudebot as well. But while Claudebot is free, again, you're going to need an AI service to power it. Claudebot's kind of the framework of this AI agent that controls it and makes it work 24/7. The brain is going to be your AI service, which you can use your existing Claude service if you want. So my $200 Claude Max plan, that's what powers it. So I'm not spending any extra money on the AI. If you want to use your Chat GPT subscription, you can do that. If you want to use APIs, you can do that. And I'll go in more in details in the different options shortly when we get into setup. Okay, so you decided how you want to run Claudebot. You have either a Mac Mini or a different computer. Maybe you have a second computer laying around your house that you want to use, or maybe.
And again, this is OpenClaw now. It's not called Claudebot. No, it's not Kameshwar Kate, but I will email you the link whenever you want. I will be posting after this live stream's over. I'll publish the replay. And when I publish the replay, all the links to everything will be in here. I will also likely go back into YouTube and publish the links over in the YouTube description. Because, yeah, this is a fascinating video. I'm telling you, like it's been in my head for weeks. It's bothering me how effective this could be in literally replacing all of us. Like, not perfectly, but
If you set up a virtual private server, it doesn't matter. Or maybe you're even crazy and you set it up on your home computer. That's fine as well. How do you set it up from here? Well, very, very simple. It is one line right here. If you go to claude.bot, CLAWD.bot, you scroll down here, you have the quick start, you hit copy right there. Very, very simple. This is the most powerful tech, and it's all done with one line. You open up a new window. You open up a new terminal window, you paste it in, you hit enter, and that installs ClaudeBot. What that's going to do is take you through an entire onboarding session. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see this onboarding right here. You're going to want to hit yes on I understand this is very powerful and very risky. And then it's going to take you through this onboarding session. You're going to be able to choose your model and auth provider. So you have so many different options here. I used Anthropic. I'm using my Claude Max account. You can use your existing subscriptions if you want. So what we're going to do now real quick is go through the advantages and disadvantages of each of these models. You can do this for really cheap or really expensive. You have many different options here. The most expensive way is through the Claude API. You can spend thousands of dollars a month on the Claude API if you want. The next most expensive way is Claude Max for $200 a month. This gives you a lot of Opus usage. The best model you can use with ClaudeBot is Claude Opus. The way I like to think about the decision around which model you should be using is personality and intelligence. You want a lot of intelligence and you want as much personality as possible. Out of all the models you can choose, which I just showed you on that list, the absolute best one that's highest intelligence, highest personality is Claude Opus 4.5. It is maximally smart. It does everything I tell it to do. It never gets confused. And also it has by far the best personality. And don't underestimate the personality factor here. I'm serious. And I'm not usually one of these types of guys that care about the personality of the AI, but talking to Henry, my Claude bot, and it talking back and feeling human makes this so much more fun and satisfying. You really want a good personality of this. When I was testing out
dude. You are arming the machines to destroy you in the future. Do you not understand what the fuck is happening here? You are giving them the tools to destroy you.
Other models and they didn't feel very human, it made the entire experience a lot less fun. When you would text Henry to do something and it would text back like some robotic response that felt like AI, it took away this illusion that you were talking to your employee. So personality actually matters a lot. So Opus 4.5, highest personality, highest intelligence. Then after that, you have ChatGPT 5.2. That is very intelligent, but its personality isn't great, to be quite honest with you. So ChatGPT 5.2, or whatever the latest model is for you at the time of this video. It's very intelligent, but its personality feels very robotic. I don't love the way it talks to me. Then you have a lot of...
You know, it's funny you ask if you could stroke Henry's hair, Kate, but I'm gonna maybe I'll show the other video because we're pretty far into, well, we're about halfway. I watched another video where she shows that Henry figured out, signed himself up for a virtual phone number and literally called and had a real voice conversation with Alex. Fucking crazy.
These other models, and honestly I group most of them together, but Mini Max, I'd say if you want to save money, is probably the best option to go with. It's going to be pretty intelligent and the personality is actually going to be pretty good.
So I'm not going to make one of these, but I just thought it was interesting to see him chart all this out and lay out what's good.
Tasks that you can't even imagine. The next thing you want to have ClaudeBot do is vibe code for you. It is actually an amazing vibe coder. It can control any vibe coding service you use. So the best ones to use are through the CLI. So if you have Claude Code or if you have Codex, make sure to get that installed on your new computer and have your Claude bot use it. So you can say, hey, I'm using Codex, make sure to use it, or Claude Code, and then give it ideas for things to build. So I told it to build this Kanban board. It wrote all the code for me through Claude Code. It uploaded it to GitHub. It created a pull request. It sent me a link for the pull request, and I was able to review it when I got home. This is a really amazing workflow. So if you have apps already on GitHub, just say, Henry, I logged into GitHub on your computer. Go check it out. Go see what repos I have, review them, and then build any functionality you think will be helpful. Go tackle this repository and see if there are any bugs. Go tackle this repository and clean up the code. Go look at this repository and build this feature out for me. So my app Creator Buddy, I came up with an idea the other day for an article building feature, because articles are like blowing up right now on Twitter. And I told Henry to build out this article writing feature, and it built this out for me. I was on the road. I was in my car in full self-driving mode. I'm literally living in the future. And I texted Henry, hey, can you build out some sort of functionality in Creator Buddy where it can write articles? And it built this out. It created the pull request. I reviewed it and committed it. Boom, just like that.
Z, man, if this guy is the future, kill me now. That's right. CBC, holy Siri. Yeah, imagine that Siri was like actually like functional and did what you needed it to. That's kind of what this is, but on steroids.
Now, we have this clip from TrueStream Media.
When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in a community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
Hey everybody, I thought I might make a video every once in a while just to go on record with just the insane cartoon level devolvement into complete ridiculous mockery that is becoming our country.
Everything is a scripted reality show.
Just so that it's on record somewhere, because so much is happening so quickly that by next week, when all the new insane stuff happens, we're going to forget this stuff. And I think it's important enough that it needs to be put somewhere.
After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression,
like this past week, which began with everyone talking about how the Department of Homeland Security has been sending administrative subpoenas to companies like Google, Meta, Reddit, and Discord in an attempt to get the names, email addresses, telephone numbers, and other data that could be used to identify Americans who are critical of ICE online. Sparking people like me to ask, is this still America? Do we still have the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment?
The test of despotic power is that it can disregard the will of the people. It rules without the consent of the governed.
Or have we fully devolved into some kind of authoritarian Gestapo land?
According to a memo from the acting ICE director obtained by the Associated Press, immigration officers can enter homes without a judicial warrant.
Where federal agents can use administrative subpoenas to show up at your doorstep and try to intimidate you because you said mean things about them on the internet.
Let's not pretend that the Trump administration is just started doing this and this has never been done before. The Biden administration took unprecedented action to investigate, to look through accounts.
Every time we talk about a story, we can't bring up Biden.
Yes, we can.
Who is the president right now?
Trump.
Okay, so we need to talk about the president that campaigned on being so different from Biden and his administration in a variety of ways, including some of the bureaucratic things that he didn't like that he's now doing.
Which is something they've actually been doing now, by the way. I just think this is a great sign for where our country is headed, considering that ICE is now the highest funded federal law enforcement agency, and they're rushing to spend $40 billion, and that's billion with a B, buying up old warehouses so they can convert them to detention facilities all over the country, basically under the exact same pretext as Rex 84.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution, and I was deeply concerned about it.
Administrative subpoenas, just by the way, are not judicial, meaning it's a form that's filled out and signed off on by the same agency that's going to execute it, completely unchecked by the separation of powers that this country enumerated in the Constitution it is supposed to be based on. I mean, that's super fun for an agency that isn't even in the Constitution, right?
We're joining forces to defeat government corruption.
On February 19th, President Trump convened a meeting of his newly formed Board of Peace, which he created and named himself chairman for life of, and on whose executive board sits his son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
A lot of these people are volunteers. They're doing this not for any personal gain. People are not personally profiting from this.
And then he announced that the U.S. government would be making a $10 billion contribution to his newly formed Board of Peace, which he created and named himself chairman for life of.
I want to let you know that the United States is going to make a contribution of $10 billion to the Board of Peace. Thank you. And we've had great support for that number. And that number is a very small number when you look at that compared to the cost of war. That's 2 weeks of fighting. It's a very small number. It sounds like a lot, but it's a very small number. So we're committed to $10 billion.
You might ask yourself, as I did, how that squares with Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the Constitution on appropriations, where it straight up says, quote, "No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law." But since we really don't have a Congress, I don't even know why you would bother asking. Trump's announcement, by the way, of giving himself basically $10 billion of taxpayer money from the government happened on the same day that the Congressional Budget Office announced that there will be an immediate 7% payment cut to Social Security benefits in 2032, followed by an average 28% benefit drop from 2033 onward.
The Social Security Trust Fund is funded by payroll taxes. They're the taxes that we pay on every paycheck. It is not funded out of the general revenue like the rest of the economy. And so we can't run a deficit, which means that when the Social Security Trust Fund runs dry, which again is 1 year earlier in 2032 than was projected last year, according to the CBO report, on the budget and outlook that comes out every year, then payments have to be curtailed.
How come people like this can always stare straight into the camera and tell you things like this government has endless amounts of money to just inject into the system whenever they feel like it? They can send it to foreign countries.
$15 million to educate soldiers in Africa about providing activities for education about how to not get AIDS. I really hope to God that by now people know how to not get AIDS, and I don't know why the American people have to pay $15 million for that.
Spend it on war, give it to banks, build concentration camp networks, whatever the hell they want. But when it comes to your grandma not even being able to afford her studio apartment and a bowl of oatmeal, then it's like we all got to make cuts, even though it was your money that they took from you. Social Security, of course, the Ponzi scheme that Americans are forced to pay into for their entire working lives.
69 million people, seniors, receive a Social Security check each month. For many of those 69 million, it is the majority, if not all, of the income they rely on every month.
Please, sir, I want some more. More?
Oh, but you know what else happened that same day? He announced that he was directing the release of all the files. No, not the Epstein files, which they've barely released half of, but alien and extraterrestrial life and UFO files.
In short, I will just confirm that, yes, we do have a moon base.
To which a lot of people said, that's so neat. Where are the rest of the Epstein files?
Now these motherfuckers trying to distract us by releasing classified alien and UFO document. Don't nobody give a you the monster, motherfucker. Trying to distract us. When you the monster. I'll go smoke a joint with E.T. Scared of your bitch ass.
Although we do live in a comedy sketch now, so perhaps the reason for announcing the release of the alien files might have something to do with, I don't know, the fact that they've been teasing war with Iran all week.
I've said too much already. What I can show you is the images that have been beamed down to us from the Odyssey satellite system just a couple hours ago. This is the view out of the front door of the United States secret moon base. This was taken yesterday before we discovered the bear problem. And this one was taken just a couple hours ago. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, those bears appear to have guns and motorcycles.
We believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel. Perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but
We wouldn't happen to be invading Iran today, would we?
You got me.
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
I really miss Trevor Moore.
I don't give a if tomorrow they have a press conference with Yoda, Spock, Alf. Be like, cool story, bro. Cool story. Cool. Now where the rest of them files you in? Where the rest of them millions of files? With your monster ass. Don't nobody give a Man.
On Friday, in a major ruling on presidential power, the Supreme Court struck down Trump using flimsy emergency declarations to bypass Congress and impose tariffs.
They say that that is not actually in the language of that statute, that this power was not authorized by Congress through how it was written. President Trump argued otherwise, that he has broad authority as president if he believes there is a national emergency.
A tax, of course, being exactly what a tariff is, which is awesome considering 90% of Trump's unconstitutional tariffs were paid by us Americans here in America.
Well, that's going to be a food fight going after $175 billion, isn't it? So
I got a feeling the American people won't see it.
Yeah. Okay.
With one of Trump's own nominees to the highest court in the land, Neil Gorsuch, citing the Declaration of Independence, writing, Americans fought the revolution in no small part because they believed that only their elected representatives, not the king, not even parliament, possessed authority to tax them. It's probably not a great sign if one of your own nominees to the Supreme Court shoots down something you do as president as unconstitutional and cites the Declaration of Independence in his ruling. And how did our president handle this news, you might ask? By holding a press conference where he said he can basically do whatever he wants.
But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee.
Then, instead of going, oh, that's unconstitutional, he turned around and said he's going to implement a 10% global tariff.
A president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place.
What I say goes, see? I'm the law around here.
Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged.
He's doing this, by the way, under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which was passed under Gerald Ford and gives the president the ability to impose temporary tariffs in the case of a fundamental international payments problem. As the director of the National Taxpayers Union, Brian Riley, pointed out, the U.S. doesn't have an international payments problem since the floating exchange rate was adopted more than 5 decades ago, so this is actually also just illegal.
His Justice Department, in our case, filed briefs to the United States Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals that said Section 122 is inapplicable and the president can't use it. So now he's turned around 100%. I'm not sure what his rationale could be to turn around. And he's going to have to somehow argue against his own Justice Department's interpretation of the statute.
Then he turned around on Truth Social and said, actually, it's going to be a 15% worldwide tariff. And I just want to point out that not even King George III woke up one day and went, you know what I think I'm going to do is tax the entire world 15%.
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Stop calling me, you
Listen to me. We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
You hear me? It's coming from inside the house.
Make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us.
You could say, wow, so everything's devolving into this kind of mafia-run police state circus nightmare, but at least we have Maha, right? Wrong. More like Mahaha, because the joke is on us. Sorry, I just really wanted to make that joke. I know that's lame, but I just really wanted to make that joke. But it is. It's like mahaha, because there's no way that... Remember when during his run for president, Trump said this?
We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our environment, and we're going to get them out of our food supply. We're going to get them out of our bodies. We'll get them out of our body, right? Right?
Yeah, no. On February 18th, Trump signed an executive order promoting the national defense by ensuring an adequate supply of glyphosate-based herbicides, calling one of the likely culprits in America's chronic disease epidemic, quote, crucial to the national security and defense. And that description of the culprit in America's chronic disease epidemic, that's actually not mine. That actually comes from a June 14th, 2024 post by our Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., who happened to go on a podcast last month and straight up say that he believes glyphosate causes cancer.
Well, I believe that glyphosate causes cancer.
The timing of this EO might lead one to wonder if it maybe, just maybe, has anything to do with the fact that the day before he signed it, Bayer Global, who owns Monsanto, just got done settling a class action lawsuit for $7.25 billion to, quote, significantly contain the litigation claims alleging Roundup causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Make America healthy again. We're going to make America healthy again, you know?
I don't know how anybody thinks they're voting their way out of this.
You are going to vote tomorrow in an election which will do one of two things. Keep our limited government with its constitutional freedoms, rights, and responsibilities, or change them for unlimited government and a planned economy.
Like, I get it. We're run by a cabal of satanic pedophiles. There's tremendous wealth inequality. We have a technocracy that's built autonomous drone armies, but you can still have a good life.
The only way to fix a republic once it's corrupted is to remove their corruption and restore the lost principles. That is the only way to fix this problem. That is the only way this is going to change.
It is difficult to comprehend the level of state-sponsored criminality we are witnessing because our country has never experienced anything like it.
There's no whataboutism like, but the last 5 presidents were also all terrible, so I can be too. Like, that's not a response. It's not a rational argument as to justifying any of this. It doesn't work. Everything that we try to do will just make things worse unless those things are removing the corruption and restoring the lost principles.
I said to my people, am I allowed to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor?
This is fine.
Otherwise, this is the fall of the Roman Empire 2.0.
I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently. That's okay.
And the only thing that makes it even a little bit more entertaining is we have memes now.
Now, we have this clip from Cognitive Dissidents.
And welcome to the for now, bi-weekly edition of Cognitive Dissidents. This is Hrvoje from Geopolitics and Empire.
I'm Mike from the Parallel Systems Broadcast and Parallel Mike Podcast.
This is Monica from the Monica Perez Show.
So we're experimenting here. We're going to try doing an episode every 2 weeks. Let us know whether you love it or hate it or are indifferent. And I guess some of the cool fun news was that we made it onto the Corbett Report. And maybe I just real quick share that snippet. Let me see, pulling it up in the shared screen. You can see that, yeah?
Place right now.
Technically, Greenland is tectonically part of the tectonate because NASA,
Yes.
Greenland is part of the North American tectonic plate. Funny. And then just my trends again. So anyways, what do you guys think about that? That was cool, no?
It was a very long segment, actually. I listened to the whole thing. Yeah, it was good. You laid it out.
I don't know much about the Corbett Report. I live in a bubble, but I've heard of him, so that's probably something. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. I appreciate it when anybody shares our stuff. I always think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Mike, you didn't know Corbett? Well, he's like one of the OGs from the mid 2000s who started this, right? All right. Well, I guess one of the first topics, I think the big news of this week was the past few weeks is the AI stuff. And there's a lot of material. I recently listened to Tristan, I think it's Harris, I forget his name, ex tech guy on Diary of a CEO, and I thought that was a must listen, watch podcast. And he's laying out a lot of the same themes that us have been looking at related to technocracy in a totalitarian world state that big tech is building. And let me just to kick off share a few segments here where one of the big stories was first you had Matt. So there's two perspectives on this, right? That AI is taking over the hype, right? And so that's embodied by people like Matt Schumer, who's the CEO of these AI companies. So so it's clear we gotta kind of have to parse through the noise. It's clear that these guys are hyping it up. There's a huge hype. It's not doing what they're telling us it is. So there definitely is a hype. They need us to subscribe to their AI platforms so that then we can help build it out, right? So that they can get money. So they're hyping it most definitely for financial reasons, for their transhumanist religion, ideological reasons. And so something big is happening. Is this article that he just posted, and he just said, ChatGPT cloud, it's so amazing, it's doing everything, you're all going to be replaced in a week, blah, blah, blah. And then there are people countering it. I'm going to show those clips in a second. I recently had on Will Spencer, and he wrote a great piece on the killer app is killer hype. And then at the bottom of it, he lists sources of people who are debunking the hype. And then there's this guy I just came across, Mo, who I think works in the tech space, and he did a 4-minute video explaining it's not doing the things, it's not ready, before just getting your thoughts, I want to just show a few clips. And this one was Brad Pitt fighting Tom Cruise, where they mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. And I do have to say, it looks like a scene that was filmed with actual Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. So you can't deny. I think the truth is in the middle. So this stuff is powerful, these tools. So I'm just going to play these 15 seconds.
No, you killed Jeffrey Epstein, you animal! No, he was a good man!
He knew too much about our Russia operations. He had to die, and now you die too.
No.
Now tell me, doesn't that look real?
That was pretty good.
And then we've got this one where it's these two women in their apartment, in their living room, and then AI fills in the rest, and it makes it look like they're floating in the middle of the ocean. I mean, it's wild. And so so you get more examples there. And then here's Musk saying we're all going to be replaced.
Corporations that are purely AI and robotics will vastly outperform any corporations that have people in the loop. So you can think of, say, like computer used to be a job that humans had. You would go and get a job as a computer where you would do calculations, and they'd have like entire skyscrapers full of humans, 20, 30 floors of humans just doing calculations. Now that entire skyscraper of humans doing calculations can be replaced by a laptop with a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet can do vastly more calculations than an entire building full of human computers. So you can think about, okay, well, what if only some of the cells in your spreadsheet were calculated by humans. Actually, that would be much worse than if all of the cells in your spreadsheet were calculated by the computer. And so really what will happen is the pure AI, pure robotics corporations or collectives will far outperform any corporations that have humans in the loop. And this will happen very quickly.
And I'll just add one more. Andrew Yang, who was the presidential candidate who promotes technocracy, he wrote a must-read piece. And I don't curse, but when I'm quoting somebody, I have to quote them. He calls it the fucking, and that white-collar labor is quickly going to be replaced. And we are seeing unemployment numbers high. And just one more short clip from 60 Minutes where this guy talks about the AI slop apocalypse, which I can't agree more with this guy.
I mean, if you go into Amazon now limits the number of books that an author can publish on a daily basis to 3. So you can't publish more than 3 books in a single day. Clearly, they're not writing these books. These are AI-generated novels. And they go online and you sell them for $1 or whatever. So they can turn out this stuff, at an amazing level. Every time I publish a book, as soon as the book is published, there are 3 books that come out that there are companion books to my book that says, oh, you don't have to read Baldacci's book. We tell you everything that's in the book right here in a really summarized form. So you can read it in like 30 minutes instead of reading his novel. Every book I've written in the last 7 or 8 years, companion books come out on the same day. At some point, the sales are going to nosedive. The market's going to be flooded with these cheap AI-generated books. Publishers are going to start losing money. They're going to start shutting down. And all of a sudden, guess what? You don't have any really great writers emerging anymore. All you have is vanilla AI stuff that is just a hodgepodge of stuff that other writers have already written. And that's not a world that I want to live in. I don't want to go to AI-generated movies or listen to AI-generated music that no human hand has even touched. It's just based on stuff that other people have already done. I mean, that's not the world that I don't think most of us want to live in. I certainly don't.
So I'll stop there, and I'll add that I watched last night. Sometimes I just need to decompress from geopolitics and globalism. And I was listening to Joe Rogan with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and I think it was a good episode, except for like the last half where they're talking about
That's
sports.
Decompression. CIA propaganda is how you relax.
Well, yeah, but it was interesting discussion because they were talking about the film industry. So I like to learn about things away from geopolitics and globalism. But they were talking about AI, and you got to hand it. These people are very intelligent, like Affleck and Matt Damon, and you learn about their industry. And he was saying that AI cannot write a script, and it never will. And I think he's got a point, because you need a human sort of intelligence, and it just cannot do some of that stuff. So your guys' thoughts on this whole space here?
Yeah, I would just say with the whole AI thing, this idea of intelligence is really what's bamboozled people, is the idea that artificial intelligence is going to be like human intelligence. When we know that what it actually is, these large language models, or LLMs as they call them, it's basically just like a really advanced search engine that's got great predictive capacity. So it's scouring all of its data that it's mined from the internet and then saying, well, what's the most logical sequence of letters or numbers that comes next? And that can be really useful in a technocracy. You could certainly have it automate certain jobs in healthcare and the legal profession, but you can't trust it. And that's the problem. You can't trust it because it doesn't have real intelligence. It can't reason. It can't think. It doesn't have the divine spark, the creative thoughts that we can have. And for that reason, it will never, ever be what they're promising it will be. It will always be an artificial, a parrot, basically, repeating what humans have already done and said. It's just a very sophisticated parrot. But of course, the narratives have to be so big for 2 reasons. One of them is to keep the Ponzi scheme going, because after 2008, they needed the next big thing that's going to change the world, and it's AI. And if people truly valued the AI space on what it's actually earning businesses, it would collapse the Ponzi scheme, because it's not earning any businesses anything. Nobody's earning money off AI. They're actually spending more money just fixing the mistakes on it. And then there's this other whole occult transhuman narrative that it's going to take over the world and it's going to bring forth the Antichrist. It's like, no, it's not. It's literally not got intelligence. Obviously, if you're a psychopath, you might think maybe we can animate it with some spirit or soul. And some of those guys do think that. Some of these people in the tech space genuinely do have a religion where they believe you can animate technology. And that's the transhuman side. But again, I think there's no evidence that that would ever be possible. I think if you're a Christian, then it's ludicrous anyways that man could animate. Well, it's kind of like Frankenstein's monster, trying to animate a corpse or something like this. So I just think the whole thing is a scam. And I think we're going to see that revealed over the next few years. The only people that are going to retain this current narrative are the ones that like propaganda and listen to a lot of it. And so, yeah, Elon Musk and those guys will tell you it's going to take over the world, but there's zero evidence of it. It's actually failing in its objectives.
Okay. Well, I agree that it's not going to have human intelligence. I saw what you posted, Hervoy, about the guy saying, yeah, it sucks. It's only loved by people who are bad coders in the beginning. And I think that it is going to do what it's going to get better at doing what it does, which is the curation and aggregation function of searching. And in that way, it generates images and music and stuff, and it can generate slideshows, and that's great. And it's totally manageable and controllable, and it will be like a level up on productivity and everything. But if you look at what Musk said, like, could you imagine if a skyscraper full of accountants and pencil pushers could be done by one spreadsheet? And that's what happened. And that is actually what happened. Like, you can do that with a spreadsheet right now. And guess what? Just like with seamstresses and washing machines, the number of people employed using those technologies is much greater than when those technologies were invented. So I don't think that it as a tool is going to be a real threat to all industry overall. That's the other thing, is they want you to think it's all industry. But some industries, yes. Some job titles, yes. I don't think it's overblown in what it's going to do as far as getting better at what it does now, though. I agree that the problem with real creativity is, and I think I was on Union of the Unwanted, there was a woman there, I think she was a doctor of some kind, and she talks about this, that what you like about a music or like an art or whatever is what I'm going to apply the Japanese term wabi-sabi to that. Like, there's something a little bit imperfect about it that resonates with your like soul or the analog nature of your own brain. And that's why it can never really have that spark, the divine spark that's in something created by a human being with a divine spark. So I agree, you're not going to get to that spot. And I think The Matrix tells that perfectly. Like, we tried to give you the perfect world, but you couldn't accept it. I also think that the idea that human beings will no longer be necessary when jobs can be done by AI, that goes to a book I'm reading actually on my show called Our Enemy the State by Albert J. Nock, where he says, like, we are going to have problems as long as people think of a job as something to be given, that taking labor and capital and applying it to resources is something that you have a right to do, a God-given right. So the real problem would be if we no longer have access to land, full ownership of land, and like that tokenization issue, that would be a big problem. Or if they so completely control the weather that you can't use the land to grow food. So that's really the problem, is that the alternative to having a job that AI could take is being self-sufficient or parallel. And that's where we should be focusing on what are the alternatives. And two more things. I think that the hype is meant to super high charge all the investment to create a bubble, to really build it out at taxpayers' expense, at dumb money's expense. Just the way, if you watch the documentary Das Netz, Stuart Brand, I think it was, who said, the biggest impact of the 60s was that we got all these people to contribute free their coding. They created computing free by crowdsourcing it among the youth. And I think that's what these bubbles are for. Yes, they're going to lose money, but you'll have the tech. So all the people might go bankrupt, but you'll have it. And that's what they're doing, and it will burst. And then the last thing I will say is, and this goes to Mike's second point, there's a pattern where they will tell us whether it's a COVID or the COVID vaccine or chemtrails or I don't know what other, I have other examples, but there are trillions of invisible monsters everywhere trying to kill us all. And thinking that AI is in your computer ready to leap out and eat your brain is scary. And they like that. And that's one of the agenda items. But I think that's so those are my thoughts based on your thoughts.
Next, we have this clip from Charlie Robinson.
Bulls, bears, and birds preparing the financial industry for an avian influenza pandemic. That's the name of the half-day symposium on avian influenza for senior leaders and decision makers from the financial sector who were responsible for business continuity, health, and security. So you go, whoa, hang on a sec. When did this happen? Well, this Bulls, Bears, and Birds event took place in 2005. So it's like, well, did they need it? I mean, did they? Well, I don't know. You tell me. They didn't have an avian influenza outbreak, though they have been trying to push that for a long, long time. But just 3 years later, did they have a catastrophe with the banks? They did. It looked a little different. It wasn't virus related. It was it was another form of virus. It was central banking virus and all of the inflated housing market and all of that good stuff. But the same thread runs through all of this, right? It's we're going to talk about what could happen in the future with some epidemic, right? Some pandemic that's going to come around and it's going to kill everybody. And we need to prepare for it. We need to plan accordingly. And so they've done these in similar, with similar themes. But it's like, how do we prepare for the media messaging and the overwhelming health needs of everybody rushing the emergency room, right? So that's one version where they've done the role play tabletop exercises and work through all those things. They say, well, in this situation, we would have supply chain issues and we would have this and we would have that. This event that they put on was different in that it was specifically for the people on Wall Street. It's like, what happens to the, fuck the people. What happens to the money when something like this happens? Now, of course, the underlying theme of this is that some avian influenza situation is just going to sprout out of nowhere, sweep across the world, just, as nature does. And then it was no fault of anybody's, but we have to plan accordingly just in case, right? That's the sales pitch. Now, we are well past that. We have been doing this for a while, and we understand that this is problem reaction. This is not, what if some catastrophe happened in the future? This is, we are planning a catastrophe in the future. This is what you need to know when it comes. In the lead up to it, this is how your messaging needs to be. This is how you need to position yourself. And this is how, when it starts, this is how the structure of the operation will work, right? So you have these tabletop exercises to bring in what they did. The event brought together experts and leaders from the medical, public health, and business continuity communities, financial communities roughly, and to apprise the financial industry leaders on the threat of avian flu and to offer suggestions regarding what the financial industry could do to prepare and respond. So this is the abstract. I'll just read it. This is from their own words, right? Bulls, bears, and birds preparing the financial industry for an avian influenza pandemic. Okay. It's the event brought together leaders and experts and leaders from the medical, public health, business continuity, and financial communities to apprise financial industry leaders on the threat of avian influenza and to offer suggestions regarding what the financial industry could do to prepare and respond. Because everybody knows the financial industry is really good at responding to avian flu pandemics, right? what are we doing? What are we talking about? Okay, so the authors of this study are the same cast of characters that are behind everything else. Thomas Inglesby, Tara O'Toole of Dark Winter 2001, Atlantic Storm 2005, Clade X 2018, right? Jennifer Nuzzo, Beth Malden, Nora Lean, Gigi Quick Gronval, Eric Toner. So they ran this drill 20 years ago in 2005. And in 2000, and not for nothing, but in 2005, I remember I was in Asia. I was in and out of Asia, and they were having bird flu issues. I mean, it wasn't a major thing, but they were treating it like it was a major thing, you know, with checking people's temperatures at the airport to make sure they didn't have like high temperatures and things like that. And I know this because I went through the airport in Shanghai with a high temperature and was totally convinced I was going to get like total recalled out of there. And I was going to be like, they're like, how long are you in Shanghai? I'm like, 2 weeks. And then they just start flipping out and they realize I have a fever and then I'm in a chicken coop for the rest of my life. So I know that they were doing this in 2005. They were talking about it in Asia, but it really kind of fizzled out. We never really got the avian flu world tour that we were promised. You know, I don't know. I guess the PR campaign fizzled or something. Something didn't work. Timing wasn't right. Control structure might not have been in place yet. I don't know. It could be a test run. But when they talk about these things like avian flu, I mean, it's going to come back. I mean, you know, you get the bat flu and some sort of variation of this. You know, they tried monkeypox and that didn't score well with the the people that they tabletopped it with, and they said, well, you know, everyone loves monkeys and they're not really scary. Like, you got to get a scary, like spiderpox would be way different than monkeypox. Monkeypox is adorable. Like, you know, you can get monkeypox in Cancun, it seems like, but I don't know. So I'm assuming that they're going to do this in some form or fashion. The reason why I say this is extremely important is because the financial industry is going to be kept abreast of this in advance of it, before it happens, right? So there's so much money at stake. And when you're talking about these decisions, and we saw what happened with COVID, and they get the excuse to print tens of trillions of dollars into existence and you know, over the course of 3 months, which is crazy. So you know that if there's some global health component, it's going to be tied to the financial industry. I mean, because this Venn diagram overlaps so easily. There's so much money in healthcare, and where does that money come from? Well, you know, all these companies are publicly traded. Well, you have to look to Wall Street, and it's like, all right, well, we have to talk about the money behind the companies that are in the healthcare industry as well, right? So it's not just as simple as saying, this doesn't impact Wall Street, this is a healthcare issue. It's like, well, who's publicly traded? All the healthcare companies, all the vaccine manufacturers, all the big pharma companies. And that depends on Wall Street. So they're going to need to be kept up to speed on this. So they were at, so what they did is the same team that they used for Atlantic Storm in 2005, just around the same time they did this, they ran Atlantic Storm, which was germ warfare in Europe. And of course, as we know, vaccines are the solution. They're always the solution, no matter what it is. Guy stubs his toe, vaccines are the solution. So because what they do is work backwards, starting with vaccines are the solution, and then how do we create a scary chain of events that then predicates us saying, see, we told you vaccines are the solution. So they're all Johns Hopkins University, the Center for Civilian Biodefense Strategies, but they've moved it. Did you know they moved it? They did. It's now known as, and it has been known for a little while, but it's now known as UPMC, Center for Health Security. This is for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, though it's still based in Baltimore. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the geography of the East Coast of the United States, Pittsburgh and Baltimore aren't really close to each other. So it's not like Pittsburgh's in western Pennsylvania. Baltimore, it's on the coast, on the East Coast. So it's not like, it's a very unusual sort of relationship. They focus on pandemics, emerging infectious diseases, and broader public health emergencies. Okay, so the people from Johns Hopkins Center in Baltimore are now part of something else called University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, but it's also in Baltimore. Just for geography purposes, just so you know. So because when you hear these things like University of Pittsburgh, you're going to think, oh, they did this in Pittsburgh. They didn't. It's just because. So what they did, they get federal funding for bioterrorism. By the way, the people who started the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UMPC Medical Center for Health Security, the two people who are in charge are Tara O'Toole and Tom Inglesby. They're the ones that you keep hearing over and over and over again who are involved in Dark Winter and Atlantic Storm and Claude X. And the reason why they're involved in that is because they run this company.
Now, we have this clip from the Corbett Report.
Do you have a plan about what to do if and when you are confronted by the jackbooted thugs of the police state? Sadly, that isn't merely a hypothetical question.
It's not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
Something that we believe you've written on Facebook has upset someone.
You're here because somebody got upset. Is it against the law? Am I being arrested?
You're not being arrested.
Then what are you doing here?
My plan was, if you were admitting that it was you who wrote the comment, you could just make an apology to the person.
I'm not apologizing to anybody, I can tell you that.
The alternative would be that I have to call you in for an interview. I'm here to talk to you about the allegation. They've reported it to the police.
So what?
Police tossed stun grenades into a crowd in Israel's Bnei Brak on Sunday as clashes broke out in the ultra-Orthodox city. Security forces arrested men who took to the streets over the army's efforts to recruit some of the community's members.
We are here today to fight against the whole draft that they want to draft all the Torah Jews into the army and make them become irreligious and make them lose their connection with God, which is the worst, which we believe is worse than death. We would rather die than serve in their army. The whole reason why they need us, they don't need more soldiers. There's no war in Gaza. They had enough people in Gaza. They don't need any soldiers. All they want is to make it that there shouldn't be any more religious Jews. They hate the Torah. They hate God. We are here to protest against them today.
Yes, the sad, unfortunate reality is that it doesn't matter whether you reside in Boston or Birmingham or Bnei Brak or anywhere else on this planet. There is the chance that you will be confronted by law enforcement officers for, well, a number of things, whether that's something as trivial as a social media post or something as non-trivial as standing up to enforced enslavement, aka enlistment in the IDF, or any other of a multitude of vast and important and perfectly defensible reasons for standing up for your rights. You may be confronted by law enforcement. And the question is, what do you do in such a situation? Well, one answer that presents itself, given the state, the literal physical state of law enforcement in America and various other places around the world, you could just try to plain old outrun them, and you may just win that race.
Leave me alone!
But you probably don't want to bet your life on that strategy, do you? So, again, the question comes back to, what can you do? What should you do when you are lawfully standing in your right as a free sovereign human being and confronted by agents of the Epstein class, which of course is what the brutish thugs of the enforcement wing of the police state really are in this day and age? It's a valid question, a good question, and one that is not, of course, simple to answer, because You can do everything right and everything by the book, and you can follow the letter of the law, and you can still end up with a bullet in your head if somebody gets the wrong idea at some point about your interaction. So let's take this question as seriously as it deserves to be taken, and let's start talking to people who have some experience with this. And first of all, we'll talk to someone who hopefully you will already be familiar with if you have seen my previous Solutions Watch from 2022 on auditing the police. If you have not seen that episode of Solutions Watch, and if you are on YouTube, you have not seen that episode of Solutions Watch because that occurred when I was kicked off of YouTube. But anyway, it is there in the CorbettReport.com archives, and it is a wealth of information on this topic, and people who are out there not just passively asserting or standing in their rights, but people who are actively testing and making sure that the police are following their rules and procedures and the letter of the law. A dangerous activity at any time, but certainly so in 2026. But if you do cast your mind back to that podcast episode, you'll remember that I talked to Jason Bassler, who you will probably know, hopefully know, as the co-host of the Free Thought Project podcast. But hopefully you will also know that he is at jasonbassler.com, where you can learn more about not only this co-host of the Free Thought Project podcast, but the founder of Police the Police, someone who has been called one of the most extensive recorders of law enforcement misbehavior in America. He's also the creator of the Know Your Rights online seminar, teaching Americans how to understand the law, avoid the traps, outsmart the system. So, in the wake of recent events and masked ICE raids on snatching people off of the streets in the United States and all of the craziness that we are seeing at this time, I put the question to Jason, how can people effectively stand their ground legally when confronted by so-called would-be presumed authorities, ... without being killed?
Well, that's a big question. That's a good question. I usually say that the people that are looking for a fight or come dressed for a fight, and that seems to be the case with the militarized police right now. So I would say one of the most important things, is to not be loud. You need to be smart, right? You need to be strategic with this kind of stuff. They're looking for a fight, as I was saying. And that seems to be how they're trying to escalate things. So knowing your rights, knowing your limits, when you must identify yourself, when you don't have to, what you're required to do, what you're not required to do. Because, rights on paper and then rights in the street are not always kind of the same thing. So you have to be smart about how you're going to assert your rights. You got to be calm, but firm. You don't want to turn it into a showdown. And a lot of times, actually, what I tell people in my Know Your Rights class here is that it's probably best that you don't have any interactions with the cops. Try to make yourself not be seen. The best interaction to have with a cop is the one that never happens, right? So, when you're doing the civil disobedience, the protests, the cop watching, the 1A audits, stuff like that, ultimately, and I hate to say this because I'm not trying to have, a chilling effect here, but you are to a certain degree painting a target on your back. You don't want to be necessarily poking the bear, especially with like local law enforcement who can really make your life a living hell. So yeah, the state is certainly ramping up its enforcement of dissidents, and we not only need to know our rights, but we have to kind of stay disciplined. We need to make sure that we're calm, we're coordinated, and really adhere to the nonviolent discipline of, protest. No threats, no ego contests with cops, all these things could get you into trouble. And I think I even heard at one point in like the late 2010s that people were doing these silent protests in different cities around the world. And I felt like that was a very unique type of protest because ultimately when that happens, there isn't a lot of escalation. And a lot of times law enforcement can't escalate the situation without making themselves look bad. But to kind of continue my point here, I would say make sure you're surrounded with people who also know their rights, people who have cameras. There's safety in numbers, right? You have to be organized, go with a plan. Legal observers are always a plus, have some type of emergency contact. And I think I've talked to you about this in our last Solutions Watch when we were talking about auditing, but, have a lawyer, a contact number written on your body, not just in your phone. These are all kind of important things. And control your emotions. That was another thing I was just touching on there. But, anger is obviously understandable at protests. But when you infuse your anger with adrenaline when there's armed authority around, as I was talking about, who are kind of itching for some type of violent confrontation. It's certainly a dangerous mix. So, know how to control yourself. Obviously, document everything. That's another big thing that, we've seen more in the past 10 to 15 years now. Cameras seem to change police behavior. Any type of federal employees, federal agents, not always, but, it's enough to kind of make a difference. So when you're able to document the situation, the shift, it goes from being a fight in the streets, and it could be something that you turn into a piece of content. And then at that point, the conversation moves to social media and blogs and video platforms and stuff like that. So it's not as dangerous, right? When there's police around and, you're under scrutiny, probably not doing that and having that kind of confrontation in the middle of the street with armed law enforcement is probably a good idea. You could take these documentations. A lot of times the transparency, shines a light on what's going on. It's certainly important. And, we could use more of that, obviously. I mean, that's why a couple of these situations like Alex Preddy and Renee Good turned into viral expressions across the internet, because people saw what actually happened. I would say also understand the risks when you get into situations like this. These situations are inherently high risk. There's a heavy police presence. There's militarized police, escalated crowds. And this kind of gets into like the situational awareness. You got to know when it's time to stand your ground, when it's time to retreat. I know firsthand, I've been pepper sprayed. It's not fun. That's probably the least of, the violence that could have been inflicted on me. But nevertheless, even pepper spray is not fun. But I would say, just choosing your battleground wisely is the last part here. There's one thing to have a confrontation in the streets with like protests, but when you have the strategic pressure through content, through social media, through things like journalism, even agorism, that's a more effective route, in my opinion. And, it's not, and I think our leftist friends kind of get this wrong sometimes, because it's not just about how we resist in the streets, right? It's about the other forms of civil disobedience and noncompliance that oftentimes could be even more effective than just protest.
I definitely want to get into that with you. But before we do, unfortunately, we can all think of and name various examples that have gone viral of these types of confrontations that go wrong in various ways. But how about the flip side of that? Are there either people, organizations, or specific incidents that you can point to as an example of, hey, that's how this type of situation should be handled?
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned it and referred back to our previous conversation, and maybe some of your audience could check that out. Maybe you could even link it, James. But yeah, the First Amendment auditors, these guys generally are more professional in their approach to how they handle law enforcement. Oftentimes, these guys actually know the laws and know how to interact with police better than the average normie and even cop watchers, because this is something that they do for a living. Most of these people have lucrative YouTube channels, and they make big money by basically going around to their own city, their own towns, different precincts, different post offices, any type of government business, police department, and they test the waters. They actually test to see if the local law enforcement, government employees know the laws. And I've learned a lot, certainly just by watching them, how to interact with police, how to navigate a hot-headed officer who does have a chip on their shoulder. And a lot of times, James, let me tell you, it's just about acknowledging their authority first. That is the biggest part. That seems to be the trigger, the linchpin, if you will, if you're going to have a positive or negative experience and have a good or bad day with these law enforcement employees. So I would point to the First Amendment audit community. They are probably the best expression. There's quite a few. It's not even hard to find them anymore. They have viral videos all over places like YouTube. But yeah, that would probably be the example to point to.
Once again, that is Jason Bassler of jasonbassler.com. And I hope that people who are interested will take a look at Jason Bassler's Know Your Rights seminar, or at least interested Americans should take a look at that for more details about what your rights are and how you can stand in them effectively. But But I think some of the points that he raises there are extremely important to underline. First of all, well, obviously, you have to know your rights in order to stand in your rights. So having some familiarity with the law, at least as it is written down and enforced in your local neck of the woods, seems like it would be a prudent thing to have at your disposal. And secondarily, I think he makes an extremely important point that if you go looking for a fight, you are more likely to get a fight. And if you are smart about it and not looking for a fight, you can more effectively avoid the fights. That does not mean, of course, that you are safe, that you are protected, that everything will go all right. But anyway, the point stands. The more you are looking to generate an argument or a fight with a police officer or law enforcement officer, the more likely you are to get into such an altercation. And that can go very wrong very quickly. So it is probably something that you want to avoid to the extent possible. And it's important to keep in mind, we are not simply talking about going out actively in some sort of protest, really confronting and provoking law enforcement. We're talking about all sorts of situations that can arise in your daily life. And it can happen. And unfortunately, it does happen. So that is why it behooves you to know something about your local law enforcement situation and how others have dealt with these types of situations in the past. If you are in America, you might want to look into and examine some of the details of, for example, if you are stopped by masked brigands on the street, demanding your identification, what can and should you do in that situation? You better be studying those examples. If you're in the UK, you might want to be studying the examples of the many, at this point, tens of thousands of people who have been questioned, if not outright arrested by authorities for having the temerity to make a post on social media, as is increasingly common phenomenon. Or if you're in Israel and an ultra-Orthodox Jew trying to resist conscription into the IDF, you better know the examples of people who have been doing that in the past and what has resulted from that, those types of protest activities. Or if you're in Ireland, well, maybe you want to know a little bit more about our next guest's experience. And our next guest may be familiar to some in my audience as the editor-writer of the Globalist Gazette, a satirical Substack, which takes a sort of Onion-esque approach to independent media and I think creates some humorous headlines that you might enjoy. And maybe you've been familiar with the Globalist Gazette. But who is the man behind that? It's not Charles Foster Kane, as he dubs himself on the Globalist Gazette masthead. It is Seamus O'Lee, an ordinary, average Irishman who, well, he had his own tumbling down the rabbit hole experience back on March 15th, 2021, when he was kidnapped by a shopkeeper and had the guards called in on him for the temerity of going out and attempting to purchase a beer at an off-license, that's a liquor store for Americans in the crowd, without wearing a mask.
How's it going? I'm in with Donovan's off-license on Summerhill, and I've been forcibly kept inside the shop here, and the man here is ringing the guards.
Correct.
So this is
yes, hello.
Kidnap.
Can I get the guards, please, to O'Donovan's office in Summerhill, please?
This is false arrest and kidnap.
Yes, Summerhill, yeah. Please.
So this is
That's
going.
Right, yeah. Just up from McCurtain
This
Street.
is going live out to YouTube.
I have a fella here who actually assaulted me.
So this.
I locked the door, so he's actually locked in the shop.
Oh yeah, he said I assaulted him. I tried to get out of the shop.
Paul, and
so
you the shop?
he's saying that I assaulted him. I was just trying to get out of the shop.
Inside.
Yes, that is the scene that unfolded at the off-license there in March of 2021 in locked-down Cork, Ireland, where, of course, you cannot enter the off-license without a mask, according to at least the shopkeeper, although interestingly, when the entire story played out, of course, the guard, that is the Irish police, were called in and did question Seamus O'Lee for having not worn the mask, although interestingly, they weren't interested in hearing Seamus's complaint about being kidnapped, being forcibly confined in the store, But anyway, once the guard had come and interviewed him, what eventually happened was a fine that included a summons, and Seamus actually went to court to represent himself there, and the guard in question did not show up in court, and it was ultimately thrown out, as such a case should be, in any ideal universe, should be. But then again, in an ideal universe, none of this would have taken place in the first place. But that is an example of somebody who did stand up for their rights and was ultimately vindicated. Although, of course, as they often say, you can beat the rep, but you can't beat the ride. And this is perhaps a case study in that. So what the other, I think, maybe more important part of what eventuated from this was also a book. It's called Tales from the Lockdown. The subtitle is One Man's Experiences Through One of the Strangest Periods in Human History. It is by Seamus O'Lee. It is available at talesfromthelockdown.com. And you can read through it for more anecdotes, stories, and experiences from the crazy days of the scamdemic. Do you remember those crazy days? Because they were not so long ago, and they are a perfect case in point, an example of why it does behoove us to understand, to know a little bit about these confrontations or encounters with various law enforcement authorities, and how it could come to you for doing something as simple as refusing to don the mask. So, in that context, I had the chance recently to talk to Seamus O'Lee about his experience. I've started by asking him about what happened on that day, how he handled it at the time, and given his retrospective conclusions, how would he have handled that if it was happening today?
So I had the silly idea of going into this off license, where I did know that the guy was starting to get, I would I would buy a bottle of beer or two a week. And I might pop into this particular off license, and I knew the guy was getting a bit more insistent because of the previous time I had been in, and I just thought, okay, look, I'll bypass this by having the right amount of change in my hand. I know how much the beer costs. I'll get a couple of bottles, I'll leave the change on the counter, and just like that, that'll solve that problem. And he can just say to his boss, who's giving him grief, this difficult customer came in, and he just put the money on the counter and he walked out, and what could I do? But no, he decided to lock me in. No, like the things that lined up for this to happen, like there was nobody else in the shop. There was only one door out, which he went over to lock. He didn't adhere to social distancing at all, I must say, which I was very disappointed with. And it was just a power trip. Yeah, I suppose basically a power trip. And he locks me in, and the constabulary. He phoned the state enforcers, and in his phone call, he kind of casually mentions that I assaulted him, and I pointed out that I didn't assault you on camera. That seemed to have gone by the wayside. That accusation was dropped. Funny enough, the police never picked it up. They never asked, okay, this accusation of assault, did this happen? No, there was no mention of that. They proceeded to. I mentioned that. I think being locked in, being incarcerated against my will is a crime. Is that, should we talk about that? No. No, the mask is more important. What's your details? I gave them my details, and then they asked me who my doctor is. And I was kind of going, what? Of course, they had no authority to ask that question, but I didn't know the ins and outs of it at the time. But I looked up the the Barrington Declaration on my phone, and the guard, as we call them, no, nothing like a guard. They don't guard much except the mega corporations in the country. But I was looking up the Barrington Declaration, and Professor Kulldorff, the head of Harvard Medical School, I think it was Harvard Medical School, was my doctor. He was my doctor because I listened to him, and so I told them that Professor Kulldorff, and they were asking me, they were writing it down, and it was like, how do you spell that? Kuldorff. And where is he based? Harvard Medical School. Harvard Medical School. Head of Harvard Medical School, actually. And then they dropped that line of questioning because it wasn't. So there's your non-compliance.
He's locked me into the shop. This is false arrest.
Yes, he wouldn't.
This is
He
kidnapping.
knows he's not getting served because he wouldn't wear a mask. So he tried to take 2 bottles, leave the money on the counter, and push past me, but I wouldn't allow it.
Let's see what happens here now.
So in retrospect, how do you rate your March 15th, 2021 performance? What did you do right? What could you have done better? What would you do differently? And what advice would you give to people who are in that sort of situation today in the post-lockdown world?
Yeah, okay. So if I was in that situation again, I mean, I think I absolutely did the right thing. Happened to have a phone where I could video the situation. I think I can't kind of, I think I got that bit right. I was calm. I didn't get into any major arguments. I mean, I tried to get out of the shop and it didn't work, but I wasn't going to push the guy. Because that would have been perfect for him. So none of that. I stayed in my zone, and but one thing I would have done, I would do now if I was in a situation like that, is I would, when the enforcers arrive, my attitude is, okay, everything stops here. I bring proceedings to a halt, and I say, okay, kind of flip the tables on them and go, in your mind, you're the authority. You're the authority in this situation because you're in lawful position. They are generally in a non-lawful position. And so you start, first of all, record. And if you had no electronic device on you, you either you demand a notebook and a pen. I need a notebook and a pen if you don't have them on you before I proceed, because I need this for my defense. And so you have your whatever recording device you have or notebook. You start off, okay. Are you aware I'm recording this? Yes or no? Okay. What's your name? What's your badge number? Where are you stationed? Who's your superintendent? Okay. And so in as much as you can, calmly explain the situation to them, and just, explain that, look, I'm doing this for my defense. And, you could say, well, this is also for your protection, but that, I wouldn't get into that. And just proceed normally. And you need to ask them, okay, first of all, am I under arrest? And you need to tell me under what law you're arresting me. So you have your notebook, and this is your kind of authority. This is your statement of authority here. And so you ask them, okay, so what law are you arresting me under? And at that point, they probably can't even answer the question. So it's like, no, sorry, I can't proceed. Like this isn't happening now because like I cannot proceed. You cannot arrest me if you can't tell me why you're arresting me. Again, it's all down to attitude. That you're in a lawful position, and you carry that through all the procedure. You stick with that. It's like, I'm in a lawful position. Everything you're doing is unlawful. So I'm just going to go from that position, and that's the best I can do, and make all your decisions based on that.
Once again, that is Seamus O'Lee of talesfromthelockdown.com. I hope you will take a look at his writing on this subject, because it is an interesting case study in what can eventuate in these types of encounters. And I think he has some valuable advice about these types of encounters, specifically recording. If not with a device, although hopefully with some way of actually recording the encounter itself, at the very least, of course, noting down exactly what is happening as it is happening. And if there is a common denominator behind all of these encounters that we see and have seen here today or will see in the future, it is that they are being recorded, and that it can make the difference in a variety of contexts between having your rights completely trampled over and having some of your rights respected, at least in retrospect. And we can look at many examples of that. For example, in Seamus's own experience, you will notice that the shopkeeper was attempting to accuse him of assault for trying to violently leave the store. But he whipped out the phone and was recording and could show that there was no such assault taking place. So that wasn't even raised when the guard ultimately came, because the shopkeeper realized that there was certainly no evidence of it. And in fact, evidence that was not taking place. So again, recording can be an extremely valuable tool in these types of situations. But let's go back to what Jason Bassler was saying earlier, that the best way to deal with these types of encounters is not to have them at all. Again, I want to underline and stress, the point of today's episode is not about going out there and actively provoking or seeking to confront law enforcement, or to actively and deliberately break laws in a brazen way and then dare the authorities to do something about it. That is not the point that I am making. That is not what I am talking about, at least not here today. What I am talking about is the ways that you can protect yourself by standing in your rights in these times. And of course, as I've been saying, this is not a foolproof method, and it does not guarantee that you will come out of these encounters unscathed or even necessarily alive. And that is something, again, we have to take very seriously. Anytime you are stepping into this realm, you are stepping in with people who are armed and can take your life at a moment's notice. So do not take these types of encounters lightly. Having said that, again, as always, the best way that we can live our lives is not to live in some sort of constant state of aggressive confrontation with the authorities. It is to continue the hard and often thankless work of building up the resilient communities that will be able to not just resist or confront the police state, but to completely and utterly detach ourselves from it, or at least to the extent that that is possible. And as often people will say, well, if you do that, if you build your little community, they will come after it. And it is at that point that you need to know how to stand your ground. But I think the more important part of this, the long-term bigger picture of this, is not about creating the violent confrontation in some sort of war that is going to take place. It is about building up a thriving community that other people will want to join, that will be the example that ultimately changes the equation for whether or not people will ultimately choose to live under the jackbooted thugs of the police state and the Epstein enforcer class, or in the thriving communities of the future. And it's on that somewhat more positive and hopeful note that I also talked to Jason Bassler, talking about his vision of how the agoristic societies of the future can function to create the space for free individuals to function without the need for aggressive confrontation of the enforcers.
Agorism, as you pointed out, is one of the important things. The black and gray markets, how we build parallel institutions and societies. What that does is it reduces dependence on the state, right? We don't want to be feeding the beast. We don't want to be continually participating with it. We don't want to have any interaction with it if possible. So what agorism does, what black and gray markets does, is it shifts the power from protest to production. And at a big enough scale, it could actually be economically viable. And I think that's the idea of what we're trying to say when we want black and gray markets, is we want a scale which will span the vast parallel institutions, parallel industries, all these different things that will rise off the back of the state without its participation, without its knowledge, hopefully. And I think what that does is it really reveals what actually creates value in society. We're told that taxation produces these services in society, but when you start to look at that, what does that mean? Well, that means it's all the things that are undesirable in society, like the war state, like the largest prison population in the world, like subsidies. All these things get funded by taxation. So if we can move away from that with parallel economies, turn non-compliance into more of a lifestyle than like a moment, because it's not just a form of resistance that's just one-time confirmation, right? It's about replacing the whole system by itself. So moving into more of like the pragmatic ideas, voting with our dollars, right? Voting with our lifestyle, voting within a way that is practical for everybody, that doesn't actually include the state. And this kind of goes tied hand in hand with the black and gray markets. But this ultimately kind of disempowers the corporations, the cronyism, and empowers us morally. So I think that's a very important thing to do. Our friend and colleague, Derek Brose, talks a lot about the idea of exit and build. Exiting the system, it basically is withdrawing your consent. And I know it sounds maybe like going off grid or something like that. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just exiting the idea of participation within the system. And by doing this, it avoids the escalation of other types of avenues of protest or noncompliance. You're not attacking anybody. You're just not participating, right? You're just opting out. And this kind of goes hand in hand as well with building the parallel industries and networks. Because when there's alternatives, compliance becomes optional. We don't have to participate when there's viable alternatives that are accessible to the layman, to the everyday person. And with that said, I think, again, this kind of goes with the mutual aid networks. Of course, the mutual aid idea is something that seems to be kind of couched in like a leftist sentiment, but I think it's equally as important because what the mutual aid does, it fulfills these basic needs, right? It makes people more independent, less dependent on the state. It builds trust. It builds solidarity, which obviously we need in our societies and our communities. It feels like that's not something that we really have right now. And a lot of that might be the dependence on the state, because when you get down to brass tacks, there might be a situation or a time when your neighborhood has to come together. So I think the more that we could have these mutual aid networks for that purpose specifically, it does provide the safety nets against the enforcement consequences, against what the state could possibly do to penalize you, right? And it does create a certain level of autonomy. It gives us options and self-reliance.
Once again, that is Jason Bassler of jasonbassler.com and the Free Thought Project podcast. And I think those are some interesting words of wisdom. First, parallel economies turn non-compliance into more of a lifestyle than a moment, which is an important way of looking at this, because yes, we can get fixated on those moments of confrontation with authorities, with officers of the law, etc. And we can get very fixated on that idea that this is a moment, that must be a confrontation, some sort of decisive battle, as it were, whether literal or metaphorical. But realistically, the only thing that is going to change our actual material conditions of existence in the long run are the structures of control, which govern not just us, but also the enforcers of the kakistocracy. Those people too are in a system. And the point is to build up the parallel systems through which we can thrive without dependence on the state, and thus hopefully actually change our entire lifestyle, not just live in defiance for some moment, for some viral video, but to actually change our lifestyles. That's an important part of this. Also, I think Jason made an excellent point. We don't have to participate when there are viable alternatives. Exactly right. If there are no viable alternatives, participation is mandatory. Like it or not, you either participate or you die. You will just starve to death if you don't participate in the system. If there are agoristic communities providing parallel economies and different ways of interacting with people around you that do not require paying your tithes to the state, well, that is something that we should be building up and fostering and working towards. And I think that, again, that fosters that lifestyle of defiance and noncompliance rather than a moment of viral noncompliance, however that moment may or may not end. So that's the bigger picture of what we're really talking about today, not simply living for some brave confrontation with law enforcement, but living in a lifestyle that will be the living embodiment of the example of what we want on the bigger societal scale moving forward. Some big ideas, to be sure, and there's a lot of granular detail here. So, of course, as always, the show notes will contain the links to all of the guests and all of the various clips that we've looked at and different things that we've talked about today. But I am more interested in what you have to say about this. So as always, if you're a Corbett Report member, you are invited to log into corbettreport.com and leave your thoughts on this subject in the comment section there at the Corbett Report. In the meantime, I am James Corbett, looking forward to talking to you again in the near future. The Corbett Report is 100% listener supported. Join the Corbett Report community to become a member and log into corbettreport.com to read the subscriber newsletter featuring my weekly editorial, recommended reading and viewing, discounts on Corbett Report merchandise, and, once a month, a subscriber-exclusive video. Sign up today at corbettreport.com/members and help support this independent media.
Fuck this shit, I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit, 'cause we don't have a chance now. The whole world is fucking gone to hell. Makes me wanna fucking scream and yell. Fuck this shit, I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit, 'cause we don't have a chance now.
Guys, all rock. Thank you for being here and hanging out and being a part of the show. We do love the hell out of you, and we can't do the damn thing without you. It's a value for value gig here. If you're new here, you're kind of, just getting into the thing. This is how the show works. Every time you see not only AM Wake Up, but every other show that airs on the channels, all of that content comes to you for free. Nothing is ever going to be put behind a paywall. There's no subscribe to this to get that. You don't have to learn a secret handshake. We get $0 from advertisers. We get $0 from paid sponsors. That's why you don't hear 10 or 12 minutes of ad reads and shit at the beginning of the show or throughout it, because it doesn't exist in this environment. Instead, if you guys see value in what we're doing, you like the conversations, you like the guests, you like the jokes, whatever it is. If you see value in that, send it this way, and that's how we get to do the thing. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can participate. There's a couple of things that we definitely need to see from you guys. Most importantly, time, talent, and treasure. Time and talent, because it's just me doing all of the things 7 days a week in order to make sure that you guys see this stuff and I participate in hit the fucking like button. It's not going to break your wrist. I promise. I promise. On the talent end, if you make clips, please do that and get them out there. I don't care if 3 people are going to see it. If you tag us, we'll retweet it too, and then 3 more people are going to see it. The way that we're buried in the algorithm. But, it helps. Every little bit helps. exact same philosophy applies to the treasure part. Every little bit helps. If you're at all in a position to contribute to independent media, all of the direct donate links, including Bitcoin, are in the description. So if you have, 55 Bitcoin and you want to give the show one, it's going to get dispersed to at least 5 other content creators that day.
Kind of a fucking ass clown wouldn't have the heart and compassion to donate to baby Steve.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for being accommodating. I hit her voice up about 25 minutes ago and said,
Nice.
hey, I got Dave live from PV and you're in Guadalajara. Maybe we could get,
Yeah, man.
maybe we could get a drop in. So I appreciate you very much, my brother. How are you?
What's that quote? The rumors aren't true. I'm still alive. But yeah, I was busy today, just talking to folks, and I got a podcast in like an hour and a half. But if you want, I posted. I gave you 2 links to 2 short videos that I took yesterday morning.
Them up right now, sir.
And before you show them, just so here's what happened yesterday. I'm in Guadalajara, and we're leaving our home like we do every Sunday morning to go to church, and my phone is off airplane mode, as it often is, so I don't know what's going on. And we're driving along to church, and we pass by 4 they're called narco blockades. So the narcos cartels, they take cars and kick the people out of the car and then burn the car to block the roads against the authorities. And so I saw 2 cars and 2 buses on the way to church. And then once we got to church, we learned of the situation. They came after Mencho. And then the crazy thing was, on the way back home in the afternoon, complete ghost town. I had never seen this before in my life here in Mexico. And I've seen comments from other Mexicans there's my, that's a bus that was burned. And I think they did 250 vehicles. I'm not certain in Guadalajara. But on the way back was frightening because it was literally a ghost town. I mean, this is a city of like 3, 4, 5 million. I've never seen it before. It was like literally a scene from an alien invasion or like a 15-minute city lockdown. No cars on the street. No people on the street. All shops and businesses, everything absolutely closed. And then it's like, do you stay in place or go home? And I'm like, I put on some Bon Jovi, Blaze of Glory, and I'm like, I'm gonna go home. I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? I'm from Chicago, the murder capital of the world. I also was, as a kid, I was in Croatia while there was a war. I'm like, I'm used to this. So,
Blaze of Glory.
Bon Jovi,
you magnificent corny bastard.
You're hardcore, Mari. Hardcore, brother.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna have to introduce you to some Dimebag Darrell era Pantera for your motivation. That maybe gets you out of the tight leather pants and concho bracelet style of combat that Bon Jovi is capable of. Although he did play a savage in Homegrown. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
It's about early era Northern California weed growing, and it's John Bon Jovi plays like, I think, either East Coast or LA gangster who receives major shipments from the Emerald Triangle. John Lithgow's in it. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. It's a wild, Hank Azaria. It's a wild film. If you ever just want to check out and see like a stylized Hollywood representation of, back in the day, Northern California weed growing, it's a fun film.
I will check that out. I'm sure I had other music on, like maybe some Maiden or Megadeth.
I'm just busting your balls. Man. I'm just busting your balls.
But the thing was, going back, like I said, I've never seen this before. A few cars, stragglers on the streets, but the danger was that, you know, we took an alternate route home, but the danger was that we could have been stopped. And I'm with my family. We could have been stopped by a cartel, and they would have kicked us out of our car. I mean, from what I read, they weren't attacking civilians, so they were kicking people out of their cars and then burning them to block certain roads. That would have worked out in my favor. I'm crazy like this. So my engine is defective. I mean, it still works, but there's issues, and I've got car insurance.
Dang it, man.
Like I just said, I had my first car accident a few weeks ago, and it was the other guy's fault, and it was just, you know, we got a new bumper or whatever, body work. I'm like, damn it, if he had damaged my engine, the insurance would have, you know, given me a bigger amount. I would have gotten a new car. And in this case, if they would have burned it, again, I file on their insurance, I get a new car because the engine's not good. But anyways, I'm being silly. But yeah, we made it home, and then everyone's basically hunkered down, like, and everything's shut today as well, banks, schools. But I think things will slowly return to normal. And then my theory is that the U.S. is pressuring Mexico to clean up, to bring about the North American Union, you know, and so they gave intel to help take out Mencho. He's kind of like the Mexican Osama bin Laden, basically. And there's that, but there are some people positing that perhaps, you know, the cartels are backed by CIA, and they're doing this chaos to sort of regime change the government here as well. So pick your theory. I don't know.
Interesting, man. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you seen any of Max Egan's walk and talks through Puerto Vallarta over the last day or so?
Yeah, I saw that was funny because I was there like a month and a half ago. I was exactly where Max was walking. We went on vacation, and yeah, I saw his walk and talk there. I saw Dan Dix's reports, and I know Patrick Henningsen is out there. I think they're still stranded, Dan and Pat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so is Dave. Dave's staying another night because you can't travel with that much cocaine. So
is it the flights, or there's no flights for the moment, or
let's see. He's still muted. I think he'll be back. He had said that they were letting some flights out, and after we wrapped here, he was going to look into it. He was probably going to stay another night, but if it sounded like it was going to get worse and he could get a flight out tonight, then he would be smart and take it.
Yeah, I don't foresee. I mean, I think we're at a crossroads. A year ago, almost to the day, I gave an interview in Spanish to a big Mexican channel, Ruben Luengas, who attended Brose's People's Reset, and he's really good at Ruben. And I said in that interview a year ago, basically, I said they want a U.S. Civil War 2.0 plus a Mexican-American War 2.0 equals North American Union. So again, this chaos to clean up shop and warrant be the pretext for further integration. So it depends on how the elites are going to approach it. So things might just die down and they'll do this slow burn, or they may want more total chaos, and we'll see more chaos. So it's hard to say which way it's going to go. But traditionally, though, things have sort of died down after these types of events.
So, and that's kind of the thing. Because there's, of course, all kinds of rumors and speculation, and even the Trump administration has, to whatever degree they participated, we don't totally know whether it was just intel or logistics, or if they had any, actual involvement in the capture and kill operation, as it were. It seems to be at least the cartel orchestrated, road blockades and show of force and stuff like that. It seems to just be coast to coast, but through central Mexico. And there doesn't, is that just because that's Jalisco New Generation controlled territory? Do they not, do they just like, do you have any information about that?
Well, someone produced a map. It was multiple states that they were doing the chaos.
Yeah, we put the map up earlier.
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, it's hard to say because we're in the realm now of deep politics, right? Where do the cartels begin? Where do the intelligence services end? There's stories of, again, Israel. So, U.S. arms. The cartels are armed by U.S. arms, by Israeli arms, and then it's a strategy of tension. We're back to Gladio in the 20th century, and the only way you can really figure out is when the dust settles and the consequence. What have they achieved? So once we know what has been achieved politically, then we can kind of figure out who may have been behind it. So, if the result of all this, pushes us more towards North American Union stuff, cleaning up shop, then you can see it. Yeah, I think in general, we know the trend up until now, Venezuela, Cuba, Greenland, they want to clean up shop to create the North American technate. And you can't do that if you've got other power brokers in the way that you don't control. So I think that's definitely one thing. But it is enticing, this idea that, U.S., Israeli dark forces are behind some of the cartel behavior to create, for whatever purpose, to create the chaos, to try to regime change Sheinbaum because maybe she's not being enough of a puppet for them, so it's hard to say.
Bill, it could also, and shout out to Amber King from Roar Media for putting this in the chat. This could have a little something to do with it. China reportedly accuses Trump of plans to invade Mexico and overthrow Sheinbaum regime to secure $600 billion in silver deposits, possibly cutting off access to 25%. China's 25% of access to the global silver supply. Possible.
That's a good point because a few years back I had Ed Calderon on. You know him. He's been on Joe Rogan, and he did a great 13-minute update. What I shared, he did it on Instagram yesterday, and he gave an update. But that's something I think he said on my podcast or others, that you had I think it was a silver mine. There was a mine a few weeks ago that was being run by Canadians, a Canadian company, and 10 of the miners were kidnapped and killed. And Calderon said, isn't it interesting how a lot of the cartel activity, obviously it would be in the cartel's interest, but also if the cartels have a hidden hand behind some of them as well, why are they, their activity is close to where all the, like, as you mentioned, silver or lithium minerals are. And so, like I said earlier, maybe these foreign interests are using the cartels to get to the silver, the lithium, petroleum, whatever. So,
it's we're several years into sort of a growing louder but previously very quiet war for the acquisition of rare earth minerals and of precious metals. And silver is one of those precious metals that works in so many different ways, both as a component and as a currency, and there's all different sorts of ways that the silver market had been manipulated for decades and decades because it was such a principal ingredient in making the technological revolution possible.
Like this applies to everything right now, where it's like the things are becoming so ubiquitous, so kind of like always obvious everywhere, that they almost become irrelevant. Like that's almost like the agenda in a way. You know what I mean? Like we talk about like the chemical side of that, where like glyphosate becoming a really good, focus point again because of what Trump just did. And it's becoming, we're rehashing all the things we've been talking about for fucking 15 years, and that it is everywhere. I've been saying this for so long. It's in the air you're breathing. It's in the clothes you're wearing. That's not hyperbole. It's real, right? And so it's like the point was, and same with dioxins, PFAS. It's like the idea is they go, okay, whether it was designed this way or not, the logic of like the company or even I think the government overlap with this is that really we're going to make this by continuing what we're doing, but almost in a way making it worse. Like,
no, there's number 2. All right. It really does. It's every freaking week without fail.
You know what's funny about that? That was literally my fault that time. I bumped my thing and knocked it off. That's hilarious.
Okay.
The timing of that. But that's why it came back so fast. I just plugged it back in.
Okay.
But no, the point of like what I was saying was, deliberately spreading this to the point to where you can go, well, 2 things. One, well, it's literally everywhere. So how can you blame me for that, even though that's by design? Like the same thing with East Palestine, right? That was a very quick effort to sort of like rush this as far as possible. Or on top of that it then becomes like, does that then make it organic by definition? Because now it is literally everything all the time. It's like, no, not really. But in the sense of how they, farm salmon, is there even a dip? No, that's what there is no such thing as wild salmon, but we just go, hey, well, fuck it. They're all wild now because we did that. It's just weird. Right. And so the same point with all of the stuff we're seeing is it's like this effort to make these obvious, ridiculous, dangerous things so ridiculously normal and obvious that it's like, well, how can it be a lie or a conspiracy? It's right in front of us. I really think there's some logic to that, even as like a last ditch effort. Like we're so fucked. They all see it. Maybe this will work. I don't know. I know everyone sees it. It's everyone's talking about it. It's so weird how clear and obvious all this stuff is. Glyphosate, fucking Stargate, food dyes rolling back. They're just spitting in your eye right now, man. It's great.
I don't know if you saw it or not. Did you see Bobby's big long tweet? I quote tweeted that, and I said, honestly,
Yes,
Bobby,
that.
gayer than the naked spa day with Kid Rock.
Right. Well, because it's a very weak. It's not even just a weak response. It's insulting to our intelligence. You know what I mean?
So political.
Well, not even just. Yes, it is. It's all those things. But what I find so insulting is that Trump is coming out with this. He didn't go, okay, this is problematic because it's tied in with our everything, our economy. So we're going to slowly roll it back. No. He didn't do that. He said, well, it's important. Therefore, we're going to go the other direction. We're going to make it a military national security imperative. And then RFK Jr. literally tries to sell you on the idea that we just have to do it slowly. And it's just, they're insulting us. You don't do it slowly by enshrining it forever and making sure that we can become some like global leader in manufacturing in this very product. That's just insulting. That they're laughing at us. And then RFK Jr., whether it's within his power or not, maybe he isn't even, like blackmail. I'm not saying I think that or not. I don't know, but it's certainly possible. He just comes out and goes, the opposite, just lies to you right on the surface. And then even worse, you get all these people who act like they care about these things, who then at the same time as RFK Jr. is going, yes, it is bad. And yes, it does cause cancer. So that's why we're going to slowly roll it back because of the problem. You got MAGA people going, glyphosate's perfectly safe. You're all a fucking bunch of ridiculous Democrats. And it's like, but that's not even what they're saying. Your own team is not even saying that. It just gets so completely broken and muddied with just bullshit, and then honest people who maybe aren't even in this field trying to step into this. And they go, what the fuck? Like, who do I even listen to? The corporate media has been lying to me forever. They're ignoring all the studies. The mainstream alternative is like in its own fucking fantasy world that's not even tied in with either side right now. It's just so interesting. And I guess my point in all of this is that it feels like all of that may even just be by design to keep us, I guess if we're at a point where everything is so obvious and so clear and everyone sees it, like what action would you really take? Yeah, how do you pull yourself back? Like, I feel like this is where we are right now, that this is by design. To make it seen, it's weird.
Well, it's part of a larger, I don't know, collapse model. I guess,
right?
Because it's happening with every institution. It's happening with every, quote unquote, entertainment, hero or role model, or but I still contend that part of what the modern political era has done is get people to develop the same sort of relationship with politicians that they do other characters on screen in a TV series or movie or something like that. And they develop the same attachments and emotion. We've talked about this. Yeah.
Right.
So, but on every facet of that, all that's being torn down, especially around, Epstein and Diddy and Weinstein and even Vince McMahon. Did you see Vince McMahon? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. You mean like a recent thing?
Yeah, he was in court. Just last week over that really, really gnarly lawsuit that he's involved in that alleges very disgusting sexual abuse, along with what's effectively trafficking of a number of different women involved in the WWE, behind the scenes, the company. And boy, he went with an interesting choice of look. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the misfortune of being a defendant in court, but you do know that wardrobe is very important. The kind of appearance that you're putting out there, it affects a judge and a jury. It does. And Vince McMahon,
look at him. I mean, it's just, it's always important to not, whatever, judge a book by its cover or be subject. People can look one way and act differently, but it is something with a personal note, my personal opinion, and each to our own, to look at somebody and look, I believe, again, I really want to stress that's a personal opinion. I'm not even saying it's based on anything other than my view, but I do believe that you can look at somebody and get a sense of who they are in some way, but it's subjective and you can be wrong. But you know what I'm saying? Like you can see some kind of like soulless look in their face. Like there's something wrong. I'm just telling you. And same with politicians. And it's like if you put these people in a lineup and you didn't know who any of them were, I would bet you that most people averagely would be like, okay, yeah, that guy, that's something off with that person and that one right there. And then you'd probably find out, oh, that happens to be the sociopathic politicians, or it's funny because that guy looks he looks haggard right there. Something's off.
You think his lawyer was like, all right, Vince, it's going to be a rocky road here. So just, what we're trying to do is win points. All right. We're trying to win points. For the love of God, Vince, for the love of God, do not, under any circumstances, dress like a 1960s Batman cartoon villain.
Right.
Do not dress like you are the mafia don of fucking I don't know, of the Hamptons. Like, Jesus, Vince, don't show up with the reverse Polly Walnuts, please, Vince. Don't. Everyone's seen you with gray hair for 20 years. Please don't dye your hair Eddie Munster black and give yourself a Pepe Le Pew. Please don't do that, Vince. And he went, deal.
Yeah, I'm honestly more like, if you look at the like, what is it? 3 layers under his eyes, like that's a sign of somebody who is, I don't know. I think right now a lot of these people, and who knows if it applies to every, it's my opinion, across right now it's my mind because of Neil Oliver said this with Kavork Almacian, who I'll be joining in about 45 minutes. It's I think there is a level of concern, maybe even fear, within a lot of people in the elitist circles. And I mean, who knows? Like, again, I know it's easy to, like, it could be that we're completely off and they're like, who fucking cares what you guys think? Maybe that's the reality. But if there ever was a time where there's at least a level of concern about how this might end up, I would think it's right now. And so you got people like this who are suddenly, he's being accused of things. Maybe he's guilty of those things. And now he's going, fuck, am I really going to go to jail? Like, is Trump not going to bail me out? They're friends, right? There's an inner circle.
Oh, there. Yeah. No, his ex-wife is in the Trump administration. His, son-in-law is part of the Trump administration. No, he is 80. So, I mean, he is old as shit, but yeah.
So, and it's also it's interesting to look at the weight of not just allegations, but evidence, but allegations too. Because, and allegations can be false, right? Both sides play this game. But right now, it's really interesting to look at all of the people surrounding Trump. and how the weight of evidence is very clearly slanted right now. Now, yeah, you could even argue that's been altered like they claimed in the beginning. That's possible. I never argued it wasn't possible if there was manipulation and fuckery going on, but both sides going on with this file database, but you just look at it, from Lutnick. You could even talk about Gates and stuff. They're like all right around this location. Every single one of these people, Teal, the leading elements being shown to us in these files, and they're like the inner circle of this administration. Now, our opinion out there. I think the Democrats are just as represented in Biden's administration. It's the same thing, but the willingness to ignore how clear that is from people who pretend to want the truth it's pretty alarming. But as I've always said, I don't think it's even close to the majority anymore. I think conservatives are just like, it's a whole changing field right now. But that is a huge category that it just blows my mind. People that I know, like I said, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but that I would be like, I know you know better. Like, I know you know better. I've seen you make these arguments before, and now suddenly you're blinding yourself because it's in the interest of your team. It's unfortunate, but I do think there's a level of concern in all of this, including the mainstream alternative media, who are like, their house of cards is coming down if this really does fall apart. Did you see Alex Jones? Again, like every day he's getting fact checked by Twitter when he's ridiculous. He has this all caps thing like, Massey, you're the one that should have released the name. It's like, what are you even fucking talking about? He's using an argument that is hollow in its beginning about how somehow Massey was the one hiding the names that they gave him. And look, in the point, and that's not even entirely accurate. We can get into that if you haven't talked about it. But even if it was the case, the point everyone's making, well, who fucking redacted him in the first place? Why are you making it about him, the one who's been trying to do it, even if he's in some limbo moment, not revealing what he's... But my point was, isn't there supposed to be a process? Isn't that what you guys are telling us? That it has to go through the right channels and has to be done the right way? Now you're screaming that Massey doesn't just throw things out on Twitter. It's just they're drowning, guys. We all see it. But I kind of hate, but don't hate to admit that I find some level of enjoyment in watching these people get seen for what they are, because they are. I think that's what they are.
This is what I said about it. There's lots of different types of lies, and Ozempic chosen to give us an example of lies of desperation, which most people never even get to because most of us would never take a lie as far as Alex Jones has.
There you go.
And holy crap, it's so bad.
Well, even the community notes was like, that's not what happened. It was fucking Bondi, and they're the ones who had the and it's just this is a Republican manipulated platform, and that's not even that's an objective statement. You know what I mean? Like, Elon has been proven over and over to be deliberately fucking with this thing to get the answers he wants. Like 6 times that we can quite literally prove, whether it's South African genocide or Venezuelan elections, or it's crazy. And so even with all of that, you're still getting, maybe Alex Jones has irritated the Twitter god, who knows?
You're muted. Can you hear me? Tap, tap. You're muted. You're muted. I can't. I don't know. Okay. They can hear me. They can hear me. Steve, you are in fact the problem here. All right. So I'm going to go get a puppet to loosely reenact what you're not. Words in the meantime. Okay. So Steve is showing off his ability to be... Oh, fuck. He disappeared completely? Well, fuck. All right. Well, he was going to be a tech wizard. Yeah. It's a good one, right? Yeah. So... Oh, shit. He's restarting. Why does this always happen? Basically, this guy is running on StreamYard. StreamYard is a nasty little bitch that likes to fuck us on the regular, and it's a problem. So please be patient with Steve as he exercises his tech wizard abilities. And then we can get this thing up and running. In the meantime, me ad-libbing. Oh, God, again. Happens all the time. For those who aren't familiar with the ad-libbing history of this show just dropping off spontaneously and Steve going and like becoming a replicant or some shit, that includes things like me being stuck on a live broadcast for like 45 minutes, not knowing if an entire room full of people can hear me or not, having to just come up with interesting shit. Which is stressful, I'll tell you. And then like work out tech difficulties with people who also, I don't know if they can hear me. That was kind of intense and like fun, I guess. in that like stress under fire. Yeah. So that was one. And then Steve took a nap after like an 8-hour broadcast on a show called Electrical Alchemy. And yeah, that was fun. Couldn't stop the stream. Chris Rantcast, he had to just stop in and make it so that it was possible for all of us to recover from that. And it's the only way I was able to get out of there. I was literally just reading from like a book on the side. I like pulled a book out and I was reading from that. This is a thing that had happened before. And I don't know how long that's going to take. I got to tell you, people, this guy is supposed to be way more like savvy and like pulling off his magical what the fuck have yous and stuff. I don't know if I have it in me to improv some shit with her. It's like, I'm not capable of doing the like StreamYard stuff. No, it's not. It's like Steve on helium. It just doesn't do it for me. I guess I can like pull a random book out. Fuck. Okay, you think I'd have more to talk about? Well, shit that happened this week. I have not lost my shit. Thank you. I'm waiting for Steve to come back on and do things. Okay, well, basically the events of this week, obviously, the shit that went down in Anarchapulco with Puerto Vallarta and Hervoje stopped in earlier this week in order to be able to touch base with his experiences on that. Now it's all calmed down and seemingly gone back to normal. All the cops disappeared in the day of the various different like shenanigans and upheavals, and that kind of like to a certain extent reveals the nature of what's going on, which is like same thing that we saw with like the welding walls being put up together outside of repeated examples of things that are being used to showcase the idea that there's vulnerability while at the same time it's a more controlled set like environment of setting the global stage for what we already know is happening, but more of that happened this week, and it was intense. And it was interesting that it overlapped with so many people being in Puerto Vallarta because it's the first time that it shifted from Acapulco to that location. And so there is an overlap with the number of people who would be journalists that are there to cover this firsthand. And so it's like a synchronistic kind of overlap in that it's opportune and that we're able to do that, but at the exact same time you have to wonder about like what it is to actually set the stage for the conversation surrounding conspiracy as it eventually goes mainstream. And that's a guided accompaniment into the conversation of conspiracy going mainstream. And you have to set the stage in order to be able to get there. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand in the emotional culmination of the story, kind of like the shared dream that people are experiencing together. It's like a movie. That's why the habitual entrainment of watching movies on the regular has prepared us for what it is to exist inside of the movie that they've created out of our reality. They're kind of like parallel structures of the way in which existence expresses itself. And another dynamic in which that like doubles back on itself are dreams, because dreams are the language of stories. And that's why a lot of the time when you're dreaming, you can deconstruct whatever the insight that it happens to offer you from your subconscious by kind of like a story structure analysis. You're looking at every different role that's there, every different character that's playing it, what the archetypes are, what that is in a cultural heritage, what that means in your own life, what the color spectrum is, et cetera, and so forth. And you can do a variety of different things in response to that, like a Jungian dream analysis or so many different things. There's one book that I had that was looking about the overlap between death and dreaming and what it is to induce that in the overlap. One of the examples of that is soldiers in Vietnam when they were looking at the goggles that they had, the infrared goggles, and they were also feeling an intense sense of fear as if they were going to die. They'd be able to see kind of like a demonic shimmering through their goggles that had this recurrent adverse effect. We can at the exact same time have people who are on DMT stare at a laser on a wall and see things inherently in that they're able to corroborate with one another. The shamanistic perspective from this book, I don't know where it is. I'm not going to find it, whatever. It's a shaman book, but it's basically them sharing like trips together. And what they did in shared trips together was like to prophesize the death of this one other guy like who was visiting them in the jungle. This one guy was visiting them in the jungle, and they were all tripping balls together. And like, I think it was 70 or 80% of the shamans, they all had the same like premonition that this guy's friend had died. And they're like, oh man, sorry, your friend died. And he's like, what? And then he got the news a couple of days later. And so that's a multiple different examples of shared dream states that are recognized and able to be repeated in a way that we don't necessarily conventionally think of space or time. And so when you get into what occultists are doing using technology, it's impregnating that imaginary shared dream storytelling state that we share together. That's a thing. That's like what predictive programming is, as much as it is kind of like a soft disclosure in the telling you what's happening in order to get your consent using a cryptic language that most people don't ultimately know how to decode. That is itself artistic, dreamlike, and storytelling, by the way. Ever notice that? They're using like stage play tactics of how they reveal all of this to us in a revelation of the method hidden in plain sight dynamic that's ultimately supposed to schism some part of the human brain so that we can feel sane in an inverted world. And that's kind of like what the inversion principle is. It's like, how can you rotate the subject so they don't really detect the nuance of it unfolding? And now here's Steve. Oh my God, there.
Maybe.
Start the morning. Oh, we can hear you. We can hear you. You're kind of glitchy.
Yeah, no, my mic's fucked.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You talk now. I just did like.
I'm sorry you had to carry the show for 3 minutes, Tease.
It was burdensome and terrifying, Steve. I don't know if you're coming
try
back.
It for 3 hours every Wednesday for 3 years.
So anyway, you literally sound like a replicant now, is my point. Also, I was just looking forward to hanging out with you and not like ad-libbing like psychological deconstructions of like the species going south.
Yeah, I don't really know, man. I almost want to shit can the show and go.
No, why would you do this? Okay, like you don't have a rotation like alternate mic you can do.
Nothing that's gonna be easy to put together. It requires like digging out the gear, downloading software, hoping that works. Yeah.
You don't sound that bad. We can just do like heavy clip stuff. I can talk more. I'm not trying to be bitchy and whiny. It's more just like yeah.
I'm so fucking pissed though, dude. I mean I don't know. It's nothing. Like as soon as I click over to select that mic, it just goes dead.
No, you kind of just sound like a little bit of a resonance on the back end, mild Darth Vader.
Dude, I hate that.
Okay.
God, I hate that.
I don't think it's that bad. I'd listen to it.
Fucking.
We will savor the flavor of your words, not just the crispness of the audio.
God damn it, dude. One fucking thing, it's another. I'm so pissed right now. I'm sorry.
It's cool. Put on some jokes so that the people can jokes, and then that'll help us jokes.
Dude, God damn it. What the fuck are we doing here?
In like life in general?
No, man. My laptop is being an absolute piece of shit.
Yeah, it's fun technical difficulties where you're bombarded by yeah, if you should see Charlie. Charlie freaks out the best in response to like mild technical difficulties that happen with his audio. He starts shaking and like almost like about to lash out at the stuff around him. It's great.
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. God damn it, dude.
So another uneventful week, isn't it?
Right?
Nothing going on.
I didn't bother with anything from State of the Union because it's just dumb.
Oh, dude, I tried to watch like 5 minutes of it in Alex Stein's watch along. And a significant portion of that was Alex Stein just looking at his phone and ignoring it. And I don't like Alex Stein, but it's like that's the thing that showed up on Twitter for me to be able to watch 5 minutes of State of the Union. He said nothing. It was all just a bunch of like in the club giggles from Congress to make it seem like everything was normal, even as the moral integrity of the mythos of the American empire implodes into a bloody, like, dismembered carcass of genocide infused with ritual abuse at home. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we're living in like bizarro world. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
The blackest governor in these United States, y'all. Who's the piece of shit who destroyed California, y'all? Who likes to watch as his wife has sex with Harvey Weinstein, y'all? Damn right.
Damn, really?
Because Gavin Newsom is the the blackest governor in the U.S. now. Tease, did you miss his little chat with a bunch of different, like at a bunch of different African American events?
Oh, like I've seen him do it in the past. It's extremely uncomfortable, but I didn't see whatever.
Just over the weekend, he told a couple of different rooms full of black people that he was just like them because he can't read. He did shitty on his SATs, and he doesn't know his dad either. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the future president, everybody.
Okay. Never mind. Fuck it. I am losing. No, well, I mean, compared to the rhetoric that we have right now, no, that makes sense. They'd want the dude who's a degenerate, like Patrick Bateman-esque kind of motif to him in order to go like off the rails in his own rhetoric, so that you can then like juxtapose that Godzilla fight style against the pre-existing Titan that is Cheeto Man, you know? So it's like if you get those two to like duel their bullshit lingo, then it takes the entire thing to the next level of stupidity.
Well, his thing lately has been to tweet just like Trump, you know, and he's like basically doing Trump on social media. So
Godzilla fighting.
He'll never have to go up against Trump or debate him. You know, he'll be doing that with J.D. Vance or Marjorie Taylor Greene,
but they can do their like cross-internet javelin jousting of complete irrelevant kayfabe bullshit and make it like a super dramatic fap fest building up to the most important election of our lives, Steve. I mean, that's where all of this is going. The most important election of our lives.
Uncle Slayton's got his Texan pride, back in the thickets with his Asian bride. He's got an Airstream trailer and a Holstein cow. Still makes whiskey cause he still knows how. He plays that Choctaw bingo every Friday night. You know he had to leave Texas, but he won't say why. He owns a quarter section up by Lake Eufaula. Caught a great big old blue cat on a drifting jug line. Sells his hardwood timber to the chipping mill. Cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. He cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. You know he likes that money, he don't mind the smell.